You gotta take the thing off. Welcome to 2019 playoff show. For those that don't remember, we have Shane here. He's come back to help us out tonight with our playoff show. Shane, obviously, for those that don't know, is one of our founding members of NUIC Football Fanatic. So it's great to have you back, Shane.
Yeah, great to be back. Getting back into the swing of things a little bit.
Definitely. I mean, you've definitely kept up to speed with everything that's been going on throughout the year. And, you take a look at some of the things that have gone on. Specifically, right now, we'll stick to the NUIC, and you take a look at some of the things that the conference has done, and you look at the north-south separation, and there's just been a lot of parity. It's something that we've kept talking about all year long, and you've seen it as far as the amount of teams that have been able to compete with each other this year.
Right. I mean, you had a group of teams basically that on any given night could play with each other outside of basically Lena Winslow. Towards the end, even Forreston looked a little vulnerable after losing to Akron, and there again, Akron. I mean, 9-0.
Yeah, I mean, Akron was one of those teams that we saw coming up through the ranks.
Right.
I mean, you could see that they had the talent level last year. They finished the season 4-5, but with the amount of talent that they had, you could see it starting to matriculate forward. And you knew that this year could be one of those years where they could put it all together and climb to the top of the conference. I mean, you knew looking at the schedule when it came out at the beginning of the year that the Akron Bulldogs, you could slot week 6 and week 8 as games to watch to see the level at where Akron had come to, because they played EPC and then Forreston.
Right. And I mean, those are two teams that were on the other side of the conference last year. And there again, when they redivided the conference, you also had renewal of rivalries. I mean, Stockton, Dakota, Stockton, Lena Winslow. Those are rivalries that you hadn't seen a lot in the last few years.
Definitely. And I mean, you take a look at the amount of games that you saw. I mean, like you stated, Dakota, Orangeville, Dakota, Stockton, Stockton and Akron, which had been going on for quite a while. Same with Akron and Orangeville. But then you get to see, the Forreston and Milledgevilles and the EPC and Milledgevilles. And granted, those games didn't really come about the way that you had hoped, but it at least brought that spark back. But one of the big ones was the Forreston Akron game and the EPC Akron game. Those really came to life this year.
Yeah, and those were almost finishing touches on the stake of Akron. We're here and we're here to stay for a while.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. And I mean, you take a look at like the play of Will Gustafson and Brennan Carlson and Andrew Bowman, and then even with Ethan Yount going out for the season, Ty Steekel stepping in, it's really lifted the Bulldogs to a whole nother level. And I mean, granted, Akron's probably missing having Yount in the backfield because it takes a different level of play away from them. But what they've been able to do has been
they've had kids have stepped into those roles and have really flourished.
Right.
They really stepped up, and it takes kids to do that in order for teams to get where they want to go. Akron's a very, very hot team right now.
Yes. Now let's take a look at a team that's not so hot, the Forreston Cardinals. Obviously, the last couple of weeks, they got off to a great start at the beginning of the year. They had a sloppy week 1, but they were able to persevere over Dakota 30-12. But then you move into week 6 when they play West Carroll, and then you got week 7 with Lena Winslow, and now just what happened last night with the game with EPC as well.
Yeah, I mean, their schedule was really backloaded. But on the other hand, they're still forced. And if you could also look at the other hand and say that they were also 7-2 going to the playoffs last year, and were given a pretty favorable draw in the playoffs, which then resulted in a couple closer games than people had thought, and ultimately bringing in another state championship. But right now, if you're a Forreston fan, I think there are some things that concern you a little bit, and nothing more importantly than keeping the ball and not giving it up.
Yeah, they've had a lot of issues with turnovers, fumbles. I mean, you heard Coach Zick stated earlier tonight, in the past 2 weeks, they've had 9 fumbles. They've turned the ball over 6 times, losing it on those times. So it's definitely an area that Forston needs to clean up. And to be honest, I mean, a lot of the state is looking to see what Forston does. I mean, they are the defending state champs. They got clocked by Lena Winslow already, which Lena Winslow's been discussed as a heavy favorite for Class 1A before the season ever kicked off.
Right.
And then, just the tough win that they had over West Carroll, and then the tough loss that they had to Akron. And talking to a lot of people with that game between Akron and Forston, a lot of people are like, well, Forston wishes they could have that game back because, they would drive down the field, turn the ball over,
right.
Akron come down. And I mean, it was just a back and forth game. Granted, that's part of the game. So,
right. I mean, every team has those, I
what
hope
ifs.
we have them that game back.
Yeah.
We'd be sitting a little better. But, even last night, I don't put as much stock into that. Yeah, they turned the ball over. But you were also facing a 4-4 EPC team that if you look at the way they have done this season, out of all their losses other than against Lena Winslow, were within 7 points. I mean, that's a team that was scratching and clawing to get to that 5-win team. So, I mean, they had their backs against the wall.
Yeah,
that was going to be a close game.
Definitely. So let's change gears. Let's go to another team that we're really looking at, and a lot of people are going to want to know about them anyway, and that's the Lena Winslow Panthers. Obviously, Lena Winslow comes in ranked number 1 in state. They have a scoring offense where they're scoring 46 points a game. Their average points given up per game is about 8 points a game right now, and they've pretty much have blown through their schedule. And they've clocked every opponent except 3. And those 3 are Orangeville, Stockton, and Dupec, who they just played last night.
Right. And all 3
are
are
in the
going to
playoffs.
the playoffs. But, yeah, you kind of get that feeling like Lena Winslow's kind of just, they kind of – you get to 40 and you go home. But the way they're playing, it's just on a whole other level than what we've seen anybody in the conference bring to this point.
Yeah, I would agree. You're starting to look at Lena Winslow as that team that, provided they can play to the level we know that they're capable of doing and continue the trend that they're on, they should have a high probability to make the carpet and DeKalb come the state championship game. And if they do that and bring home the trophy on top of that, they would be regarded as one of the best teams that the NUIC has ever produced.
Right, and I can see that. And a lot of people will agree and a lot of people will disagree because, the era is different and all that. But, it seems like we had this – and I'm sorry, Panther fans, but it seems like we had this conversation last year. But until you get there, it's not sealed yet. So, I mean, the biggest problem per se is just – got to get out of their own way.
Well, that's just it. I mean, you do take a look at last year's game. I mean, they beat Forston in week 2 by 20 points. They didn't meet anybody until the quarterfinals when they had to take Aurora Christian. Aurora Christian was heavily talked about last year because they come out of the Catholic League with Bishop McNamara and St. Francis and Immaculate Conception. And here they are in the playoffs, perennially a 3A team, now in Class 1A,
Right.
And Lena Winslow put a whooping to them.
Right, yeah, I remember listening to that game, and I think a lot of people in our conference were kind of surprised when they heard that score. But to those who had really been paying attention, per se, kind of saw, I wouldn't say to that extreme of difference in scoring, but it wasn't really a surprise that Lena Winslow had handled it.
Yeah, exactly. Sorry, Jay, no chips this year. Now, you take a look at where they're heading. Obviously, they got 2 Division I recruits. Both of them already committed to Iowa, and Jennings Dunker and Isaiah Bruce. Yeah. And just watching Isaiah Bruce last night, I was talking to a friend of mine that I had talked to in quite a while, and that was his first experience watching Isaiah Bruce play last night. And it happened to be on a toss right out of the wing T formation, toss right down the right sideline. And literally, he's got 265 pounds
Very fast.
outrunning
Yeah.
the entire Dupec defense.
Yeah.
And Dupec's not a slow team.
No, they're not. And but if you've watched Lena Winslow for the past how many years, he will win a foot race. I mean, he's very fast in general, let alone for his size. I mean, you get him going with that speed, good luck.
Right, exactly. And then Jennings Dunker, I mean, the kid shot up. He's about 270 pounds now, playing on the offensive line and defensive lines. And, I mean, just his level of play. I mean, you take a look at the kid off the field, nice as can be. You get him on the field, though, and he's got that it mentality where he just turns it on, and it's a whole different level right now.
And no surprise, it's a D1 recruit. Something that Lena Winslow's had. It seems like they're getting the kids and the athletes, and they're getting to that next level where they're sending out kids to college. For the longest time, that's not something we had seen around here.
Right. So let's move into another team, the Orangeville Broncos. Obviously, thanks to the Bronco Nation for following us, as we know that they're online already. But obviously, Orangeville is one of those teams where the past few years we were kind of putting them on a parallel with where Milledgeville was. You could see them come from basically the bottom of the conference and slowly be working their way up. And Coach Doyle and his staff have done a great job with the amount of talent that they had. And now they have a senior-laden team mixed with a good amount of juniors that have been 3-year and 4-year varsity starters. And they're in the playoffs. They're in for their 3rd straight year now. It's the first time since the Brian Benning era at Orangeville that Orangeville has made 3 straight playoff appearances. So, and we're talking, back in that time frame when Orangeville, they were in the semifinals, they won a state title, and then the 3 consecutive runs where they lost to the eventual state champion or runner-up on their way to being sent home.
Yeah, I mean, they've gone on a little nice run here, and what's even more remarkable, that the size of Orangeville as a school, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but them and Aquin are the smallest participating schools in football in the state of Illinois. And here they are right in our conference, and both are going to the playoffs. But the Broncos are on a little run here.
They are. And, the last 2 years they've been seeded low because of their 5-4 record. They come in this year, you take a look at the Broncos after week 6. They're sitting at 3-3. You have Dakota and you have Stockton left on your schedule. And at that time, it was easy to just say, Orangeville's not making the playoffs.
No.
Well, they got one out against Stockton for a big win there, 12-8, and then they just laid the hammer to Dakota.
They did. Yep, and then to top it off last night to finish off the season with Milledgeville, you're sitting at 6-3.
Right.
So you don't have to worry about the 5-4 playoff points, which turned out to be a non-factor for basically anyone to begin with. But 6-3, and you're looking at the bracket a little better than that 5-4 mark.
Well, in their case, you're hoping you're looking at the bracket a little bit better. I mean, I'm not so sure they're necessarily liking who they may possibly draw, as it looks like that they could end up with Chicago Hope. And of course, when you're talking about Chicago Hope, you're talking about a team that has lost each of the last 3 seasons in Class 2A in the second round to Deer Creek Mackinac, who went on to win state.
I remember that game.
They lost, 91-70. They lost to Sterling Newman, 41-22, and Sterling Newman went to the semifinals before they lost to GCMS in a close game, 14-12. And then they lost to GCMS last year on their way to state, 31-7.
Right. They have some talent.
They have a lot of talent. The big thing for Chicago Hope is that they did lose their star receiver this year, which was LaFabian Fain, who transferred to Chicago Phillips. But he didn't really benefit their offense because they're more of an option-style offense that runs through the quarterback, Trevor Land.
Right. So, I mean, if Orangeville does match up with them, I mean, that's a tough opponent to get for anyone, let alone, teams that are playing down level like Hope has done.
Right.
So I mean that's a tough draw, but you're in the playoffs. It's 6-3. You'll take whoever you get.
Yeah, definitely. And, there's still that opportunity because they are tied with Stockton in playoff points. So technically, by IHSA rules, it goes into a random selection. But Orangeville did finish ahead of Stockton in the conference standings. They beat Stockton head-to-head. I just have a feeling that they're going to land at that number 10 seed.
Yeah. But things that we have learned in the past that, sometimes what makes sense doesn't always happen though. So
right.
There's still that chance.
There is. Now, one of the things that we have mentioned regularly throughout the course of the season in regards to the Broncos is the play of Garrett Rodebaugh. Obviously, Garrett's been a 4-year starter for Orangeville. He's also the school's all-time rushing leader now. Prior to last night's game, because I have not updated the stats yet through week 9, but going into last night's game, he sat at 3,369 rushing yards, which puts him up there with quite a few people. In fact, he's passed some greats in Joe Janicki of Akron, Jimmy Patterson of Forston, and A.J. Christensen of Forston.
Yeah, and, he's a heck of a runner, and, it seems like he goes, they go. And, he's that playmaker that the Broncos need.
Yeah, definitely. And then you add in the play of
Right.
Carter Kleckler. I mean, talk about a kid that wows you. He's not very big, but man, some of his hits are just so vicious. It's so much fun to watch that kid play. And then to throw him into the backfield to go with them and take him out of the quarterback position just gives them another element of surprise. And then now with a healthy Chase Jordan back, obviously everybody saw what he did against Dakota. I mean, he's
Still running.
that gives Orangeville plenty of athletes to work with.
A lot of weapons.
Multiple options, definitely.
Absolutely.
The one thing that they're going to have to do, obviously, is continue to play hard. And they're going to have to match the intensity of some of these teams because they have the ability to play with them. They just got to believe it themselves.
Yep, and I think they do. I mean, you don't get to this point without believing in the success that they've had over the past couple of years. As that builds on, that's something that comes with it.
Right.
So that's good.
So now we're going to move to the Stockton Blackhawks, and it's no surprise there with what Coach Snyder has done. Obviously, the Blackhawks were not listed as a favorite of ours to make the playoffs coming into the 2019 season.
I'm so reminded of that.
I am as well, and that's okay. Honestly, with the loss of Dvorak, a huge playoff loss in the first round to Dakota last year, you just didn't see the projection of where Stockton would go, especially with the realignment of the conference. And then you add in the fact that Orangeville, you could see, was going to be a player. They had to play Stockton, which you knew was going to be a player. Even the rise in play of East Dubuque and Galena were going to be areas of concern when you looked at where Stockton was projected to be going forward.
Well, even as far as, we picked, or I know I did, I even picked Dupac to beat Stockton. And, look,
I left them out too.
Right. And going into the season, looking at that paper, and that's why you play the games and, that's why we do what we do and they do what they do. But looking at paper, you thought that, hey, this might be a 3 or 4 win team, but boy, has that really changed. And, those teams that we thought would give them fits really didn't prove to be a problem at all.
No, and I mean, it goes a lot to what Snyder and his staff have done. I mean, they've really gotten these kids to buy into what they're doing. Like most programs, they've been hit. Well, I shouldn't say most, but a lot in our area. Most programs in our area, they hit the weight room hard in the off season. They try to put programs together throughout the course of the season as well to stay up to shape. So you're keeping that strength throughout. And you take a look at like Jason Herman, for example, who leads the conference right now in rushing yards. He's kind of taken that lead over from where Dvorak was last year.
Well, yeah, that's just it. I mean, Colin Dvorak was a great running back. And, you looked at that and you thought they'd have a little drop-off, but Herman has not been a drop-off at all. If anything, he might be even a little bit better than what they had last year.
I would agree. I think that Herman has a little bit more speed. He's not as big as Dvorak. Dvorak was definitely a tough runner.
Right.
You take a look and you want to compare him to a guy like Orangeville's Garrett Rodebaugh, where you got to have multiple people get him down. But with
Very
Stockton,
elusive as well.
yes. I mean, you take a look at what Stockton was last year, what they are this year. They've changed some things, but they haven't at the same time.
Right, and a point to make that we were made very well aware of last night on the message boards was the fact that Stockton also returned a majority of their linemen, and anytime you can do that and you're building on a playoff team from last year, that experience does nothing more than help you get better. So,
well, and it's huge because when you get the players like Zach Cook and Drew McGovern and Cody Schultz, that can definitely help boost your line play, help you get to another level. That's definitely going to be things that are going to be advantageous for you moving forward. And granted, I mean, you take a look at our preseason all-conference list, and we had Schultz and McGovern on there already.
Yeah.
And Zach Cook was on there at center as well. So all three of them were people that we had looked at.
Cornerstones.
Yeah, I don't know. I think the shift of the play and the rise of other teams.
I didn't really necessarily put their record on Stockton themselves. I just thought that the other teams would add more than what I guess you could say than what they did. But Stockton just elevated their play that much.
Yeah.
I think.
Moving into Class 2A, obviously we have the West Carroll Thunder, and it seems to be one of those where West Carroll and Coach Lightson are in the playoffs every other year here. And once again, it goes into the storyline, senior-dominated team. They have the ability to compete as juniors. Senior year, they get it all put together. Here they are. They're 5-4. They're not sitting exactly where they thought that they should be, per se. They've had some tough losses, obviously, as you take a look at some of their losses here, and you're like, man, what happened in that game? One of those is to EPC, who obviously is out of the playoffs with a 4-5 record. That was a game where EPC won 8-0, and then even their game with Dupec where they lost 16-8.
Yeah, and that was a 2-score game on a majority of the game. They didn't get really anything going.
No, I mean Dupec came out the gates right away,
but then you also look at what they did against Forreston. So it was like
that was where I was
almost like
a
hit or miss team at times.
Yeah, because you take a look at how they played with Forreston. Obviously, at that time, Forreston ranked number 2 in state.
Right.
You have West Carroll come in. Derek Tracy goes off the reservation with his level of play. Forreston didn't have any answers for him, and all of a sudden you're in a shootout. And really, Forreston had a 24-8 lead in that game as it was getting close to halftime. And some of what changed that was the timeout situation that Coach Lightson had with a minute left in the quarter.
Right.
Calling a timeout, taking a chance on his team to deliver, in which they did. They get a touchdown. They enter halftime just down 10 points rather than 24-8. And then they come out in the second half, and they actually take the lead. And then it just went back and forth from there. And it was an exciting game.
Right, and that took a lot of people by surprise.
Oh, yeah.
I guess, it didn't really surprise us, I don't think, so much is because I had them being a pretty good team, though. So, anytime that these teams are playing each other and you get a good matchup there, anything's possible. Even like last night, they were leading back when at a pretty decent time into the game.
Yeah.
And then that kind of got away from them.
It did. And you look at some of the play, like the play of Aiden Sullivan, Cody Sipe, even Michael Popkin and Colton Ballard. And then you get some guys that just pick up their level of play, like Carson Rice. And they have the ability. They're not a very big team. But I tell you what, when you get West Carroll on the field, you're going to get everything that you want.
Well, and there's really no better example of that than to go back a couple years and look at the game that they played against GCMS in the second round.
Oh, yeah.
That was, that was against the state champions. And by all intents and purposes, looking at that run that GCMS had, that was one of their toughest games they had was against West Carroll.
Yeah, definitely. Because they kept bringing that mentality, kept hitting you. Our last team to look at, obviously, is the Dupec Rivermen. No surprise here. I think at the beginning of the season, you take a look at Dupec, and you could have slotted them anywhere from 4-5 to 6-3.
Yeah.
Here they are. They're entering the playoffs. They are 6-3. They come away with big wins over EPC, Orangeville. You take a look at one of the ones that you thought that they would be able to play in, and that was with Stockton, where they lost that game 28-0. And then, of course, last night's game with Lena Winslow, where that kind of went the way you thought it would. But their level of play in that game last night, I have to give Dupec a lot of credit. They were ready, and they were fired up. Granted, they were outmatched, but they kept fighting that entire game. I mean, it was fun to watch, actually.
Right, and I mean that's what you need at this time of year. But yeah, like you said, I mean, going into the season, Dupec kind of finished where we thought they would. I think I had them at 5-4 if I remember correctly. But yeah, that Stockton game, that for me, that's really the only game that sticks out. Like what kind of happened here? I'm sure that they would like to have the Dakota game back as well. But that Stockton game, you know, that 28-0 was just one of those cases where it got out of hand, and next thing you know, it's 28-0.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think if you take a look at their game with Dakota and you move it from week 3 and move it into like week 7 or 8, I think it's a flipped game. I think Dupec wins that game. Now you're sitting at 7-2 instead of 6-3. You can't go back and change all that stuff, obviously. So here we are. They're sitting at 6-3, but they're sitting in Class 3A, and they actually have a great opportunity to get a home playoff game.
To me, and maybe I'm wrong, but this is the year to be in 3A instead of 2A, as far as I'm concerned, in the North.
Well,
to an extent.
You take a look at some of those games and the testament to that. I mean, you take a look at Central A&M. They beat Tuscola. They beat St. Teresa this year. They're a 1A team beating 2A playoff teams. Yep. You take a look at Athens. They did lose to Williamsville, who's number 1 ranked in 3A, but it was only by 2 scores. They lost to Maroa Forsyth in a game that they were tied at halftime, and obviously everybody knows what Maroa Forsyth is to Class 2A football. And then you take a look at Morrison, who beat Sterling Newman this year. You take a look at there was another one, but I can't remember who it is. It was Bismarck Henning. They lost to Chicago Hope. I mean, so you can take a look at some of these things. And, yeah, going to 3A, I mean, you can really take a look at 3 teams and say, pick it.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean,
Dupec's got some opportunity.
They have an opportunity of having a home game at 6-3, which in years past is kind of unheard of.
Right.
I mean, as long as you avoid Byron for a little bit, I think you can do some things.
And I don't think they're going to avoid Byron for very long, especially today because Spring Valley Hall lost their game today. So that is going to move Dupec up potentially to the number 7 seed. That's where we have them at. Which 7 seed is going to get them Chicago Harlan in the first round, but it's going to match them up with the likely number 2 seed Byron in the second round.
Instead of Princeton, the number 1, which would have been them at 8.
Right.
So
correct.
Pick your poison, I guess.
It is, but they're here, and you got to really like the level of play that Coach Hoffman and Dalton and the whole crew have really brought these guys up. I mean, here they are. They're a co-op that just started 3 seasons ago. They suffer through a 1-8 season. They get their first win in week 9. Then they come back with a 3-6 season. They start off 0-6. They win 3 of their last 4. Or 0-5, I should say, win 3 of their last 4. And now here they are in the playoffs. And, you take a look. One kid that really stands out to me is Gabe Howard at wide receiver. I mean, he's been able to go up, get big plays. Yeah. And he's got a lot of speed. And he does the same thing on defense. I mean, he just gets after it.
Traditional playmaker, so to speak.
And then, of course, you don't want to forget guys like Trave Stifter and Cody Richardson, Eli Smith, Hunter Hoffman even throwing the ball around. I mean, there you go. You got a quarterback. He's only a sophomore.
Right.
He's 150 pounds soaking wet. Throw some pads on him. You might add 10 pounds to him.
Right.
But he is got that ability to make plays. I mean, you take a look at his level of play. I mean, he's not going to run on you. But what he's going to do is he keeps his eyes downfield. And for a sophomore to have that kind of awareness, that's really good.
He's got high football IQ and situational awareness, the 2 things that you can't really coach. But when you have them, you have them.
Right. Nope, I definitely agree there. So let's take a look. All right, 1A North. Projection-wise, we have Lena Winslow as the number 2 seed, getting ready to most likely play Aurora Christian, and which would be a rematch. They had Aurora Christian in the semifinals last year. This year, Aurora Christian comes to Lena Winslow in the first round.
Yeah, here you go, smack dab again. Which, like we said a little bit ago, you look at the competition that they played, and this is one of those games where you got to show up. It's not your traditional first round game when you're 9-0. But I wouldn't let that deter you too much.
Right. Taking a look at Akron, they're pretty much locked into the 3 seed. There's no doubt about that. And with Fulton's loss to Sterling Newman earlier today, that looks like Akron will be playing host to Fulton. We saw Fulton in the first round last year with Milledgeville.
Right.
And we saw what happened there. It was a close game through the first half, and then Milledgeville turned on the afterburners in the second half.
Yeah. And the year before that, I believe Forest had played Fulton. I mean, Fulton has had their draw of the NUIC as of late. So.
Yes, definitely. Next up would be the Forest and Cardinals, as they're slotted at having the 9 seed. With the 9 seed, they would go on the road, and on the road, they would be taking on the Marquette Crusaders, a team that's not unfamiliar with the NUIC either. As of late.
The way they have played as of late, especially last night, I mean, losing a game that they probably shouldn't have lost.
Right.
But that's the way it goes. This isn't a Marquette team that is kind of the same as years past. They're not.
No, I mean they got some guys that can make plays. You take a look at their fullback Preston Auckland.
Yeah.
He can do a lot of things, but their line play is not what it has been in the past years. And obviously, they've had back-to-back losses now where they were projected to be a 9-0 team, and now they come in the playoffs on the low at 7-2.
And next thing you know, you got Forest.
And now you got Forest coming down. Number 10 seed, obviously, like we kind of dabbled into, Orangeville. Obviously, we had Orangeville. We had Orangeville selected to play Chicago Hope. We kind of dabbled into that a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll see, obviously, what the brackets bring when that happens. But I have a feeling, and I was talking to Coach Doyle last night even on it. Because of the head-to-head, I think that they're just going to get that top seed over Stockton.
Well, it would make
sense
sense.
To the random selection.
Right. And maybe you don't want that.
Well, I don't know if they necessarily do, because you take a look, you got Hope, which is great, and then you turn around and you're going to play the winner of Lena Winslow Aurora Christian in the second round.
Yeah.
So
it gets hard and hurry.
Well, you got to beat the best to be the best, as they always say. So obviously, they probably would like the 11 seed better, where Stockton we have sitting at.
Right. But also a thing to consider is, and maybe I'm wrong, but you've already played Lena Winslow. The chances of you seeing better than what you've already seen are not very great, and that helps up here.
Right. Looks like we got a message there. Travis Peters from the WIBC, lives out in Colorado, has joined us. Travis, thank you for joining us. Really appreciate you tuning in here. So great to have you on board. Taking a look now at Stockton, obviously they would be looking at going to Princeville. Princeville is another team that we've seen a lot of here recently, with Dakota playing them here a couple years ago, and Forest had them in the quarterfinals as well.
And who was it? Was it Polo played them in the first round last year?
Yes, Polo played them in the first round last year.
They've had the NUIC as well. So.
And then you take a look at West Carroll, at looking potentially at the 15 seed. They're looking to go back to Fieldcrest. That was a game that they played just 2 seasons ago, where they stunned Fieldcrest 40-0.
Yes.
Obviously, Fieldcrest does not like playing against the NUIC.
No.
They have not won against the NUIC yet, but they do get a West Carroll team. Obviously, Fieldcrest beat the defending state champion
Yeah, they're
GCMS
the number one
Falcons
team
earlier
too,
this year.
so.
So this might be the year that they could turn the page on that.
Right, and I remember, and other people remember Fieldcrest was who lost to EPC in that 2014 semifinal game in Landmark. So,
Yep.
Familiar with Fieldcrest.
Definitely. And then, of course, Dupec getting that number 7 seed. Looks like they'll be playing host to Chicago Harlan. We haven't really identified this much, but Chicago Harlan is part of the CPS schools, which are still on strike.
Yeah.
That situation for all of the CPS schools that are going to be in the playoffs needs to be resolved by Tuesday. They need to be to practice on Wednesday. If they're not practicing Wednesday, it's a forfeit. So,
Right.
And for Dupec's sake, you want to play a playoff game. Win or lose, you want to play that game. You don't want to get to the second round
Don't think about it.
not playing a game.
You don't need a week off right now.
Right. You got to play. And talking to Coach Dalton earlier today, he's in agreement. You want to play the game. You don't want to have a forfeit win and then all of a sudden, boom, you're at Byron.
Yeah.
No.
I mean, that can sneak up on you in a hurry.
Definitely. So that takes a look at that. Obviously, we got a lot of teams around the South that we have, and taking a look at some of those 1A South teams that we've discussed throughout the course of the season. Moweaqua Central A&M is definitely one of those teams with Connor Heaton at quarterback and Jacob Parody, who was an all-state wide receiver last year. He's back this year. And then you add in the level of play with Connor Hutchins as well. And Central A&M is definitely geared to be a team coming out of the Central Illinois Conference where they play Tuscola, they play St. Teresa. And if you take a look at the CIC, I mean, they've been at the state finals 2 of the last 3 years, and they've ran into Forreston and Lena Winslow on the way.
Yeah, and A&M, that's a team that has had success in the past and then had a little bit of a, I don't know what you'd necessarily call it, a little bit of a dry run for a little bit, and now here they are again.
Right, definitely. Rising up, Coach Weekly has the Raiders ready to go. Obviously, they'll have the number 1 seed in the South Division, and a lot of open roads lead them to a long playoff run this year. Another team to look for is one that we make mention a lot. They come out of the Sangamo Conference, and that's the Athens Warriors.
No.
And if you're not familiar with the Athens Warriors, they run a very systematic offense similar to what Forreston does, or going even further back, the Carthage days of old, where you run that wing T, double wing formation, and you just come multifaceted at every realm with dives, double dives, leads, buck sweeps, things like that.
It seems like every year we talk about them. So, I mean, this is not something new per se.
So apparently we're getting some reports here that the brackets have gone live. And so we'll go ahead. 1A is released. And coming in with the number 1 seed in the North is Anawan Weathersfield, where they'll play host to Lewistown, who gets that 16 seed after coming in at a big win last night to get to 5-4. They're going to play the winner of Ottawa Marquette Forreston. Forreston does get the 9 seed, so they will be traveling to Marquette with the 8 seed. For Lena Winslow, they will have that 2 seed taking on Aurora Christian, and the 10 seed does go to Orangeville. So Orangeville is going to Chicago Hope, as we had thought. Stockton will be going to Princeville, and Ackman is going to be playing host to Fulton. Some other matchups, Kirkland Hiawatha gets the 5 seed, so they will play host to Abingdon Avon, who has the 12 seed. Morrison does get that 4 seed as expected. Morrison will be playing host to Cambridge. Shane, in the South, Moweaqua Central A&M does get that number 1 seed. Havana gets in with 5-4. Havana was one of those teams that was on the playoff bubble because they had to win last night against West Hancock. They did that in convincing fashion, even though West Hancock looked to be like the favorite in the game. And Havana gets in with 29 playoff points with the 5-4 mark.
Which is insane.
Yeah, very, very low. Fisher is going to be the 8 seed down there where they're going to play host to Toledo Cumberland. At the 4 seed is Arcola. That was another team that we were taking a look at as Arcola could make a lot of noise down in 1A South. Tri-County is who they'll be playing host to. At number 5 is Greenfield Northwestern, and they're going to be playing host to Brown County. That was a game that just happened here in week 9, and now they get to play again next week. And that's a WIVC matchup there. Number 2 seed is Argenta Oriana. The Bombers, obviously, they had that one loss on the season to Arcola in convincing fashion. Arcola just blasted them. They're going to play host to North Green. Carrollton comes in with the 7 seed. They're going to play Arthur Lovington Atwood Hammond. And then a team that we're familiar with, Camp Point Central, gets the 3 seed with an 8-1 mark. They're going to play host to Salt Fork, a team that we've seen in the North a couple times here in recent history. And then Athens does get that 6 seed playing host to Casey Westfield.
Yeah, I mean, things kind of lined up the way we had picked.
Yeah, it did. It's amazing when you get that breakout and you can kind of see where you're going ahead of time, or at least get an idea of who you're going to play ahead of time. Class 2A, what do you got there?
All right, in 2A, Rockford Christian with a 16 seed will be taking on Knoxville. But to jump ahead a little bit here, West Carroll will be the 15 seed going to Fieldcrest. So that's something we just touched base on a little bit. You were given the draw, that's where you go.
Yep.
Back up a little bit to the 9 seed with Tremont going to Watseka. 13, a team that we talked a lot about last year, Orion.
Yep.
Headed to Sterling Newman at 8-1, and it's always funny to stop here a little bit. We talked a little bit how Newman's down a little bit. Their one loss coming to Morrison, and a down year for Newman's 8-1.
I know, right?
So that's kind of funny. The number 12 seed Rushville will play at the defending state champions, Gibson City. And then, like I said, Savannah will go to Fieldcrest. The winner of that game will take on the winner of Chicago Ore at Elgin St. Edward. The number 14 seed would be Mendon Unity at Clifton Central. 5-4 and 9-0.
So Unity coming in the north bracket. Normally they're down in the south bracket, but they are coming north there. They're right outside the Quincy area. They play in the WIVC.
Right, and the winner of that game will take on the winner of Palos Heights at Aledo Mercer County. So there is the north part of 2A in a nutshell. To jump to the south a little bit would be Redbud, the 16 seed, taking on number 1 Pana High School, which 8-1 gets you a 1 seed in the south. So it's interesting, nonetheless.
No undefeateds down there.
Number 9 seed Nokomis at Fithian Oakwood. So the winner of that game will take on the winner of Redbud at Pana. Number 13 seed El Dorado at Bismarck Henning, which will take on the winner of Villa Grove at Nashville. And the bottom part of the southern bracket would be number 15 Cesar at Monroe Forsyth. And the winner of that will take on Auburn at Chester. The number 14 seed Hamilton County at Decatur St. Teresa, the 3 seed. And the last game in the south will be Flora at Tuscola, 6-3 at 7-2.
All right, so taking a look at Class 3A, and the Dupec Rivermen do get the number 7 seed, and they will be playing host to Chicago Harlan. As we said, Dupec, this is their first home playoff game. Pectonica last hosted a playoff game in 2005. Durand last hosted a playoff game in 2000. So collectively, it's been quite some time since they've been able to do this.
And I think the last time Durand or either Pectonica was in the playoffs would have been 2011 when Durand matched up with Lena Winslow in the first round.
Right. Yep.
So it's been a little while.
It's been quite a bit. Taking a look there, Princeton gets the number 1 seed in the North, where they're going to be entering at 8-1 as well. They're going to play host to North Boone at 5-4. The 8 seed is going to Piatone, who will play host to Spring Valley Hall. Spring Valley Hall lost earlier today, which dropped them down to the 9 seed. 4 seed is going to be Farmington as they play host to Seneca. The 5 seed will be Paxton Buckley Loda as they play host to Chicago Carver. Coming in with the 2 seed is Byron. So Dupec, if they get by the first round, they will have Byron waiting in the second round as Byron is matched up with Rock Island Alleman. Wilmington and Lyle. Wilmington gets the 3 seed at 8-1. Lyle with the 14 seed. Eureka gets the 6th seed at 7-2. They're going to play host to Chicago Dunbar, who is the 6-2, or comes in with 6-2 record. In the South, WIBC team Beardstown gets the number 1 seed as expected. They'll play host to Newton, which was also expected. The 8 seed is Greenville as they will play host to Quincy Notre Dame. The 4 seed goes to Fairfield. The Mules are going to play Alton Marquette, who gets the 13 seed. Breeze Matter Die comes in with the 5 seed as they play host to Frankfurt. Williamsville comes in at 9-0. They won the Sangamo Conference. They're going to play host to St. Joseph Ogden. DuQuoin is the 7th seed. They're going to play host to Monticello, the defending state champs in Class 3A. Monticello enters with a 6-3 mark. They're having a little bit of a down year coming off that state championship last year. Number 3 seed is Vandalia at 9-0 as they play host to North Mac, also out of the Sangamo Conference. And the 6th seed is the Golden Aces of Mount Carmel at 8-1 as they're going to play host to the Cavies of Carlinville. We've seen Carlinville in the 3A state finals here just a couple years ago when they were routed by Immaculate Conception when they were still in 3A.
Right. And to, just to touch base on a little bit in the northern half of 3A, with Dupec hosting Chicago Harlan and potentially getting to that Byron matchup, your Dupec here, you're going to be right on that 2A, 3A going forward in years past or your previous sorry. I know, right? In future years, you're looking at that Byron matchup potentially in the second round, and this is a team of where you're going to want to be, and this might be the first taste of a rivalry that could be built in years coming forward.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, you take a look at, what you have going on there, and it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun. You keep looking at ways that Dupec can continue to rise up. I mean, they're playing in a conference. A lot of people are like, well, they're a 3A team playing in a 1A conference. You know what? I really don't care.
Have we not debunked that theory by now?
I think so. At least I hope so. But I think the NUIC conference as a whole is a great conference, obviously, but it's definitely a conference that can get you prepared for 3A competition, much like the Sangamo can, much like there's some other ones out there that can do the same thing. And I look at the Sangamo as being one of those similar to what the Three Rivers, that's the other one I was thinking about. You take a look at Three Rivers.
And I mean, we kind of touched on, based on this throughout the year, that, if you're looking at that 3A bracket, obviously, you're playing a 1A conference, but if you want to get to that 3A title contender level, you first have to start by being the best in your conference. Because we've had debates, I think last year, whether Lena Winslow could play with Byron last year. I mean, people went back and forth with that, but that's the level that you want to get if you're
going back and forth this year with it.
Which is, to me, this year is more actual than last year. I mean, it's still a toss-up as far as I'm concerned. I think Lena Winslow is closer to Byron this year than they were last year.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we had the ability to watch Lena Winslow multiple times, and we watched Byron last year. And I feel that they match up well. And that's coming out of a 1A conference compared to a 3A, 4A conference that is the big north.
Exactly. But to my whole point, but that's where you want to go if you're Dupec. You want to get to where Lena Winslow is right now if you want to have a chance of really competing in 3A.
Right.
in the later rounds.
JP, absolutely. Princeton is the number 1 seed in 3A North. They are playing host to North Boone.
And we didn't really mention, if you guys have questions, go ahead and spit them out.
We'll answer your questions as you keep going through the show. We're going to go through some more breakdowns here as we start to go into our prediction process, or at least how we teams to watch for as we take a look here at the playoff projection. And you having troubles there, buddy? It looks that way.
There we go.
So going back to, the Class 1A bracket, now that we have the official bracket up here, looking at Forreston and Marquette, obviously things couldn't get much better for Forreston getting Marquette, especially considering where Forreston is at right now, downward trending. But you come up with a big win here in Week 9 against the EPC that's fighting to get into the playoffs, a game that you knew was going to be close, or at least you had the feeling it would be close. And now they got to go to Marquette, who tends to be heading in the same direction as, you take a look at what they've done. And they lost to Kirkland Hiawatha 49-20, and now they just lost to Rockford Christian, which was able to get Rockford Christian into the playoffs.
Yeah.
It's
just to touch base a little bit, you look at the bracket, and once again, Forreston's kind of on the opposite side of Lena Winslow where they were last year.
Yep.
And, you're looking at, and if you want an all NUIC semifinal matchup like we've seen in the past how many years, Forreston has to continue to win out because they're the only NUIC team in their portion of the bracket.
Yes, they are.
So if Forreston continues to win out, and, whatever happens in the southern part between Lena Winslow, Orangeville, Aquin, and Stockton, you're looking at another team to go to state.
Well, I mean,
there.
And I even like the potential matchup of a second round game of Aquin and Stockton. I mean,
I think that all of these teams in the NUIC have a good chance in the first round. Obviously, Orangeville has a tough draw with Hope, but they're winnable games for the NUIC teams in all first round, other than outside of West Carolina 2A. And even that, that's still a game that has to be played.
I would agree. I mean, Steve Snyder is going to have his work cut out as defensive coordinator of the Broncos, as he's going to have to put a game plan together to stop the Hope offense. And I think he can come up with a game plan. Like we said, they need to be able to attack and do things like that. But you take a look at where Orangeville's at, like you said, you're in the playoffs. You're going into Chicago to play Hope. Get the charter buses ready. Go have fun. Go make a name for yourself, and knock the Eagles off and see what happens from that.
Right, and next thing you could have Lena Winslow coming to Orangeville in the second round.
Right, exactly, and that's just it. Orangeville gets a win, provided that Lena Winslow. Well, either way, Orangeville gets a win. They're hosting second round.
Right, so
that's huge.
Before we get too far ahead here, Nick wants to know why Duplex in 3A. Well, Nick, because they're a co-op, you take the enrollment of both schools, and you add them up, and for this year especially, they were right on the cusp, but that's why they're 3A, because both schools' enrollments puts them in the 3A category.
So what happened is their enrollment combined comes in at 412, and the last team in was Quincy Notre Dame at the enrollment of 405. And based off with the way everything shifted with the cutoff line coming in at 405, that pushed Dupac into the 3A bracket. Earlier in the year, when we first started doing projections, we were taking a look at that projection had gone to Class 2A, where it was up all the way to 426, which had Dupac sitting in 2A, but then it quickly came crashing down after Week 7, and then it definitely stayed stable after Week 8 coming into Week 9.
I think Travis should ask that question to IHSA himself, because that would be great, wouldn't it?
We would love to see 1 through 32. Definitely, we're huge advocates of 1 through 32 seeding. It's definitely something that we get asked quite a bit. But the last time the IHSA had 1 through 32 seeding was from 1996 to the 2001 season. And I think that there was a lot of expenses with travel, and then the fact that fans weren't getting to the games, they decided to go back to the quadrant system, which was absolutely horrible if you ask my opinion.
It's a NUIC tournament.
So now, some people like the quadrants because you were guaranteed a semifinal team. So you knew that you were going to go there.
You were losing a state championship team in the second round.
Yeah, I did not like the quadrants. I did not like the quadrants. But the 1 through 16, if they're going to do it, at least they have it the best way that they can outside of going 1 through 32. Would love to see 1 through 32. Would love to see, the strength of some of these conferences be able to have the opportunity to play each other for a state title, much like you see in other states. But unfortunately, it cannot happen here in the state of Illinois.
And I have a hard time believing that, the Panther Cardinal faithful wouldn't travel 7 or 8 hours to go watch a football game.
I know I would.
Yeah.
I've made several trips around the state to go watch playoff football.
Right, exactly.
I love the 1 through 32. I mean, I remember taking numerous road trips. I mean, it was always fun. You get up Saturday morning, you hit the road, and you're gone. And heck, you might even catch a 7 o'clock game on the way home and pick that one up as well. And you're seeing games in different areas. I mean, it's like a couple years ago when we went down to Princeton, watched polo play, or to Stark County and watch polo play.
Yeah.
And then we came back up to watch Princeton Immaculate Conception.
Yeah.
We weren't even going to pick up that game, but we happened to catch it, and it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was. That was when Snyder was coaching at Princeton, wasn't it?
It was, yeah. Definitely. So that was a lot of fun. Taking a look at Lena Winslow and Aurora Christian. Obviously, Aurora Christian has a lot of playmakers on their team once again. Right. The quarterback, Ethan Hampton, is back as a junior. They got their running back, Josh Dornick, who's a sophomore. And then you add in J.P. Jira at wide receiver, and another BB, Trey Beebe, is a sophomore wide receiver for the Eagles this year. And, Aurora Christian's got a lot of playmakers, but the real question is, can they match up with Lena Winslow up front? And last year was proven that they could not. Now, Lena Winslow's not as big up front this year as they were last year, but Dunker is much larger than he was last year. I mean, last year he was 220. Right. This year he's at 265 because he grew like 4 inches and 65 pounds or whatever it was, but 45 pounds. Just became a beast. But you take a look at some of these things, and it's very good to see what is going to traject. I mean, obviously, Aurora Christian plays the bigger schools, so you know that they're going to be competitive, and they were last year. I mean, Lena Winslow just literally wore them down, and Aurora Christian had no answers. They shut down their run game last year, forced them into a passing offense only, and they were just able to pin their ears back and light them up.
I briefly remember listening to that game on the way to another game. So,
let's see here. Question comes from the WIVC. Jordan wants to know Greenfield versus Brown County. Can Brown County pull that off? Well, that's a great question. Obviously, you take a look at the WIVC in general, and, you see a lot of great competition down the WIVC. The North Division seems to here recently be much tougher than the South Division. But if you take a look over the past 5 years, each division has had a team at the state championship game, with Carrollton in 2014 and Camp Point Central just last year. And you start to take a look at Greenfield Northwestern and what they've done this year. And GNW has definitely done some things that you would not expect them to do.
A little bit of a surprise.
They've been a huge surprise, to say the least. You knew that they were going to be tough, but playing in the division with Carrollton, obviously a lot of people put a lot on Carrollton because they're constantly winning the division year after year. Right. Here recently, it seems. But Greenfield Northwestern, they too have had some success over the years. And, a game with Brown County where, they just won by a touchdown last week, 14-7. Last night, not last week, but last night. And, I do think that Brown County can do some things with their offense to make it happen.
There's an opportunity there for that to occur.
Yeah, I mean, I just, you gotta hope that Coach Little can get things corrected that they did wrong last night in order for that to turn around. Likewise, with Greenfield, Coach Pembroke is going to be able to do some things differently as well. But it's a great first round game. It shows the strength between a 5-4 team and a 7-2 team as well.
Well, it's
when you
always
play that close.
And it's always hard when you're playing the same team back to back. I mean, it's hard to be the same team twice in the same year.
It is,
let alone
back-to-back weeks.
a week later.
You're right.
So
And
it's an interesting matchup, though.
It is. I mean, it's not that it hasn't been seen before. It is rather rare. Normally you see it match up in the second round, but the way the seedings fell, when you're 7-2 and 5-4, you have a high probability of matching up, and that's exactly what you got there. So taking a look at some other things back to where we were at. Aquin and Fulton, I think that coming back to 1A North, sorry guys, right now anyway, feel free to keep asking questions. We'll keep diving in on them. Aquin and Fulton, obviously, the play of Will Gus is absolutely phenomenal this year. You take a look at what he's done already as a junior. He's already surpassed 2,000 career passing yards. He's surpassed 1,500 career rushing yards. He's climbed his way up the NUIC all-time rushing touchdown list. He sits at 28 rushing touchdowns going into week 9. I'm not sure what he had last night. Like I said, I haven't caught up to the stats yet. Been preparing for this over doing stat work. But, I really like where Aquin is trending. They've done a lot of good things this year. And they're one of those teams that they can score in a hurry.
You can.
And they run a spread offense, so it's similar to what you see a Tuscola do, a Central A&M, an Anawan Wethersfield. You start seeing these guys and the way that they play, and Will Gustafson is at a different level when it comes to being a quarterback at the Class 1A level.
I would agree. And, he's really taken that step forward from last year to this year. And, you look at it and you kind of got to remind yourself the kid's only a junior.
Yeah.
So
he's only a junior. He's having a heck of a season this year. I mean, you take a look at some of the things that he's already done this season alone, and he's already passed for 15 touchdowns. He's throwing at pretty much a 65% completion rate. And then you throw in the fact that he's one of the leading rushers for the Bulldog offense. It's something that you definitely have to work with as far as containing him, because he's a hard kid to contain.
He's a multi-threat.
Yeah.
He's not going to be just your traditional pocket passer. I mean, when he's sitting in fourth in the conference in rushing yards, and he's also going off through the air, I mean, that's a dual threat. Right.
For sure. And then you throw in the play of the receivers with Brennan Carlson and Andrew Bowman. And I mean, both those guys are fast. They can get behind you in a hurry. Aquin likes to throw a lot of quick outs and slants, but they will throw deep ball as well. But it's all trying to you got to keep Gustafson contained, because if you can't, he's going to beat you himself.
Yep.
And that makes the Bulldogs a lot of fun to watch. Obviously, moving into another matchup again, one that I'm really intrigued with is that of the play of Anawan Weathersfield. Obviously, they come in with the number 1 seed. They're playing Lewistown. I don't think that's going to be much trouble for the Titans to get past Lewistown. But then they're going to play the winner of Marquette Forreston. And in that matchup, I really like Forreston to be there in the second round to play the Titans. And Anawan Weathersfield's a team that, we're familiar with as well because they just played Orangeville. Was it last year or 2 years ago?
2 years ago.
And, 2 years ago when they played, Quagliano was the quarterback as a freshman, and now he's a junior. And, he has definitely progressed as a very good quarterback this year.
Yeah. It was 2 years ago because I think in that portion of the bracket,
it was because they played Marquette last year.
Yeah. You had Orangeville and Weathersfield, and it was Princeville and Dakota. And we looked at that and we thought that we could get an all NUIC matchup, but instead, it was Princeville or Weathersfield that ended up matching up then with that interconference matchup. So,
right. I mean, take a look at that, and I've been getting a lot of feedback from our Anawan Weathersfield faithful, and of course, I got a friend, Ryan Waller, who keeps giving me crap all the time on, you got to watch out for him. And then, throw in Matt Sertich as well. And, they're giving me grief on these guys. And, I get it. I do. I really do. I'm paying attention to Anawan Weathersfield because especially last year, they lost in the first round to Aurora Christian. What was it, 30-26? So it was very close. And, of course, that was before Aurora Christian. Before Aurora Christian beat Princeville 41-0 in the second round there, go to get to the quarterfinals.
Yeah. Well, what I can add to that is if you want attention, you have the number 1 seed. You have all the attention now. So,
right.
There you are.
Definitely. I like the Titans. I like the Titans.
Appreciate that smiley face by the Corvus.
Yeah. That's Ryan giving me his little grief. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate it, man. Anyway, the Forreston Anawan Weathersfield, though, that's going to be, one of those games where you're going to feature 2 different opponents going at each other.
Yeah.
Obviously, Forreston sticks to that double wing. They don't get out of it ever. They're a fundamental offense that says, we're going to give you this, and here's what we're going to do.
Right.
And they don't change from it.
Here it is. If you can stop it, great. If not, it's going to work out in our favor.
Which it has for them. Obviously, they've won 3 state titles over the last 5 years. Of course, everybody knows the NUIC has been the premier conference in the state of Class 1A going back to 2010. And really, if you take a look at the last 16 seasons, they've brought home 13 state titles, 2 runner-ups.
Do the math, it averages out to be about every year.
Pretty much. I mean, there's not too many years, and even in the years where they've missed, they had the number 1 ranked team in the state. Take a look at 2015, Lena Winslow was number 1 ranked. 2009, Dakota was number 1 ranked. 2008, Dakota was number 1 ranked. And even in 2008, you had Milledgeville, which was right there in the top 5 as well.
Yeah.
And they lost in the semifinals, but
then your multi-state champion years in 14, 7, and 5.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely been a lot of fun. Morrison and Cambridge. Morrison's one of those teams, too, that we definitely need to take a look at and watch out for. The Mustangs, obviously, they were 2-7 last year, turning around to be 9-0 this year. It's their first playoff appearance since 2012. Obviously, they won the state championship in 2009 and 2011. Here they are, 9-0, winning the Three Rivers Rock Division, and they really shocked the world when they beat Noonan 18-6 a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
I think that was back in week 5 or 4, something like that.
It's been a while ago.
But
Morrison hasn't really been a factor as of late, but it's a quality program that isn't all that far removed from a state championship in 2A in 2011, I believe it was, wasn't it? They won 2A in 11.
11 and 09, yep.
Yeah.
And then they lost to Newman, who won in 10.
Right, and we don't have to go too far west of here to remind people of Morrison. After a EPC matchup with them, what was it, 4 years in a row?
3.
Yeah.
It was great for Morrison.
Where are you going with that?
It was great for Morrison. Anyway, taking a look at Morrison and the Mustangs, obviously they're back to running a double wing offense. They'll run double wing. They'll run the traditional wing tee, but they've also been able to go into a spread offense. They have a good quarterback at Nathan Helms. Their running backs, the ones to really primarily watch are Hunter Newman and Keegan Anderson. And then their fullback is Riley Wilkins, who gets a lot of carries up the middle just to help keep things honest. And on defense, you really got to watch out for Nathan Mickley. And the thing with the Mustangs, one of the things that really stands out to me with Morrison is team speed. They are fast. And they close in a hurry. They shut down the outside edge on defense. And that's really where you have to pay attention to what Morrison does. Offensively, they can hurt themselves at times offensively. They get into a little bit of mental ruts here and there. They cause stupid penalties that set them back a little bit. But overall, you take a look at what they do, and they're very fundamentally sound. Now, their line's not very big. They have a couple guys that can come in around 280 pounds, but they don't use them regularly. They kind of remind me of Milledgeville from last year, to be honest, where they just try to explode off the ball and run at you with a lot of team speed.
Yeah, and you look at their matchups. You look in that top portion of the bracket, and we're already looking at Forest and their second round potential matchup. When you look at that quarterfinal matchup where Forest and Morrison can meet up, I mean that's where you're getting to be your premier games, because Morrison, for all not to be too cut and dry here, but they have a pretty smooth path to the quarterfinals.
It's pretty simple, like you said. Where are we at here? So you're taking a look. You got Cambridge, and then you're playing the winner of Hiawatha, Abingdon, Avon, which for all intents and purposes, that should go to Hiawatha. As we've seen A-Town play up here 2 seasons ago when they played Milledgeville, and Milledgeville and Hiawatha
played Akron last year, right? And the year before.
They played Orangeville the year before, and they played Akron last year. Yep.
Yeah, so I mean, we know what they are.
Yeah,
so
definitely, and that's what's. And Hiawatha played Forest last year in the first round of playoffs.
I mean, that's what's kind of fun about all this. You look at the bracket, and then you can finally you can put it together on paper as to what you would like to see potential matchups to be.
You guys have any questions? Feel free to put them in the live chat. We'll answer your questions as we go. Otherwise, we're going to keep going on. Happy to have you on board. I know a couple have probably fallen off as we've released the projections, but we're going to keep going on with teams to watch across the state. And Shane, when we get to that, one of those teams, obviously, that we've talked about, Chicago Hope with Trevor Land at quarterback, Eric Green at running back, and then they add in guys like Stephen Garth and Davari McLean. And wide receiver, you're looking at Neil Campbell and Jordan Garcia. Obviously, Hope has a lot of speed, a lot of weapons, but at times they play undisciplined, which has been their demise in the playoffs the last few years.
Yeah, which you can't help but think of that game with D-Mac and to look at you're looking at, what was it, 160 points in a football game in a year. Like, how did that happen?
Yeah, there was no defense.
You get in a shootout, and that was a classic example of, okay, well, I'm going to let you score so I can get the ball and score.
That's when J Train's dad was chewing everybody up with.
Yes.
But Jared Reese was a hell of a fullback. I mean, that
Yes.
dude was a load
Yes.
for DMAC back in 2016, and
Yeah.
he was a lot of fun to watch, actually. But you take a look at really the Hope offense is going to run through the quarterback. They run an option offense,
Right.
and it all starts with the stud Trevor Land. And really, focally, you got to be able to have a premise to contain him. And, it's one of those things where do you plan to attack him, or do you plan to just kind of get to the line of scrimmage, hold ground, and make him make a decision?
Make him beat you in other ways.
Right.
So to speak.
So obviously the Orangeville defense is going to have their work cut out for them, but it's an opportunity where, the way Orangeville comes up and wants to hit you,
Right.
I think it matches up with what they can do defensively very well.
Right. I mean, looking at the bracket, that is one of the games you absolutely want to keep your eyes on, because that's an intriguing matchup.
It is, and it's one of those that you can definitely see going many directions. Another team down south, definitely, we've talked on them already a little bit, and that's the play of Moweaqua Central A&M. Obviously, the Raiders coming out of the Central Illinois Conference. Coach Weekly has the Raiders at 9-0 now. I originally had projected them at 7-2, but definitely as a team to watch this year in 1A South. Here they are; they're 9-0 after they beat Tuscola handily, 48-14 or something like that.
Took people.
Yeah.
You'd have thought the world was coming to an end.
Oh man, that was a heck of a
That seems like
score to
forever
see.
ago, doesn't it?
Yeah. And then, of course, they beat St. Teresa then as well in week 5. So, yeah, it was week 3 when they matched up with Tuscola. Anyway, the Raiders are running that spread option offense. Much what we've seen out of Tuscola and St. Teresa, they kind of run that same part. But, again, they have a lot of team speed. You got Jacob Parody at wide receiver. He was all state last year. He returns this year, and of course Connor Heaton, a quarterback who is the same quarterback that they had last year. And people are like, well, yeah, but we beat Central A&M in the second round, and well, that was last year. This is a different team. And granted, they played Triopia in the second round, and yeah, Triopia took a number to them, but Triopia was a senior-dominated team that was playing a more junior-dominated team. I just think that taking a look with where Central A&M has risen to, especially playing in the CIC, it gives you that opportunity to play multiple teams across different classes as well.
Well, and we had a great example of that last night in our own games as to why you don't base off this year off of last year. I mean, it doesn't take a team very long to turn around a running clock to completely dominate another game. So, I mean, you can't go based off of last year.
All right. How well or how bad does Stockton match up with Princeville?
Yeah, we haven't talked about this.
We have not talked about that much. So, Ryan, thank you for that question. Honestly, I think, yeah, I do too. You were able to see Princeville play here 2 years ago with Dakota. I watched them play against Forest in the quarterfinals that same year. And
I not to cut you off, but it's one of those deals where I haven't seen them this year, but if you don't want to step out on a limb here, but if they're the same as what they've been the past 2 years, you're okay with this if you're Stockton, because the way Stockton's playing is they've kind of hit a little boost here. They're kind of. And
they're on the rise.
Right, and you look back to that game that they had with Aquin where they were completely dominated, so to speak, and things are kind of going the other way for them now.
Yeah, I mean, I take a look at, Princeville style of play. They're going to run a double wing T type offense, some similar to what we already see in the NUIC. And Defensively, they run a base defense. They run a typical 4-4 defense. They'll go into a 4-3 with 4 DBs as well at times, depending on what you're throwing at them. But Stockton, with their offense, is going to match up very well. Offensive line-wise, I think they're going to have the edge on the offensive line. So then it just comes down to basic execution. As long as Stockton can take care of the ball and execute the way that we know that they can. Princeville was a very senior-heavy team last year. Granted, they had a good junior class that was there that just played second fiddle to a great senior team. And Stockton this year has a very good shot of getting by Princeville and getting that rematch with Acquin, provided Acquin takes care of Fulton as well. And, I would say that if you're looking to make bracket predictions on Princeville and Stockton with the 11th seed, this would be an upset pick if you're based on seed-wise, because I think Stockton is definitely favored here.
Right, I would agree with that. And to go up to the question above, where Travis asked what upsets, if any, do you see, or would you call them a 1A bracket? Looking at this bracket, and I guess, you kind of got to wonder, are we to decide, are these upsets based on seeding or upsets based on team? Because to me, there's a lot of teams that are pretty decent with a worse seed than the teams they're playing. So at what point do you call it an upset? Because, Forreston being 9 out of Marquette 8, that's an upset on paper if Forreston wins based on the seedings, but that's not an upset.
Right.
Same with what we just talked about, Stockton and Princeville. So, at what point are you really asking? Are you asking for a straight up, should Team A not beat Team B, but still somehow does? Because looking through that bracket, you might have some troubles finding it.
Right. I agree. I think Stockton just has enough of the ability to run their offense effectively and get through Princeville and make it to the second round. And then, going on to the next question by Ryan here, have you guys talked about Fulton versus Acquin and our thoughts on that? To be quite honest, we've touched base a little bit, but not much, so we can go a little bit more in depth there. Obviously, Fulton and Acquin run similar offenses. We've seen Fulton line up in a double wing offense. We've seen them line up in a spread offense. Obviously, Acquin's going to go full spread. And, team size, line-wise, I definitely give the edge to Acquin line-wise against that, against the Steamers. Quarterback-wise, I would definitely give it to Acquin because there's just not a lot of quarterbacks, at least in the northern half of the bracket, they're going to match up with Will Gustafson.
Quarterback at Acquin.
Yeah, the kid's just a stud. There's just no doubt about it. And, I've watched Fulton on video. I have not been to their games, but I have seen them play on film. And there's a lot of areas that they definitely need to clean up in order to complete their execution. They're 5-4 for a reason. They make a lot of mistakes. Acquin, on the other hand, has not made a lot of mistakes to this point. They're very fast. They're very explosive. One of the huge improvements for Acquin this year is their line play as they've gotten bigger and they've gotten faster off the line as well.
Right. And, you look at Fulton a little bit to years past here. You look at the conferences they come out of, and for whatever reason, that seems to scare people a little bit. It seems like we've talked about Fulton the past couple years, and a 5-4 Fulton has literally sent people nuts up here, and it's not so much that way anymore. A 5-4 Fulton team shouldn't scare you if you're an Acquin fan.
No, I don't think so either.
A couple of years ago, that's what people remember when Forreston matched up with Fulton. How are they going to be able to play with Fulton?
Yeah. And Acquin's just one of those teams that they can bring many facets to it. You can line up in a man against them, and they're going to find ways to run the ball. You're going to line up a zone against them, and they're going to pick you apart all day long. And it's a very fun offense to watch. Honestly, I think Ackman still has a little bit of growth that they need to do in order to compete at a state championship level position. But they're also in a state where, they've already taken down the defending state champs. So you could be one to argue, well, they are playing state championship caliber ball. And the only reason why I say that is because I try to compare things through Lena Winslow, and there's just not a whole lot of comparisons through the Panthers this year.
I would agree. Where do you draw the line on state contenders? Because then you got to kind of dive into which they're again backing up why the 1 through 32. For the love of God, it would be nice to have someday, because there are teams up here that Forest and beat last year that would have beat Camp Point down in Champaign. So when you're asking yourself, are these state contending teams? I think they are, but the problem is that the actual state finalist up here is just a little bit above it. So you don't always consider them a state championship team, when in fact they're probably going to beat the Southern representative themselves.
Right. I got to give a little shout out to my former boss, Doug Seaton. He wanted to make sure that I mentioned that we tied in our pick'em this year. So, Doug, if you're still watching, yes, you definitely tied me. I think I let you have that tie, though, because I kind of try and go for the win instead of anything else. But good job.
Oh, that's great.
Anyway, yeah, it's always fun. Taking a look back in the South, too, obviously you still got Camp Point Central down there.
Yeah.
And anything that Coach Dixon does at Camp Point Central, is going to be effective. He likes to run on speed, and he definitely embodies a lot of things through the weight room.
He's got a good
track. Yeah, he's definitely on the fast track to building a program. Obviously, he's done great things at CPC already.
Yep.
Getting to the state championship last year for the first time in school history as well is definitely something that he can pocket and build off of. He does a lot of promotional things that I really have enjoyed with him as well.
And the coaching clinics that he puts on as well. I mean, teaching his methods and stuff like that is just great to see.
Oh yeah, and you see a lot of coaches from up here that attend his coaching clinics. You're definitely seeing a lot of people throughout the state that are going. I know that Coach Dixon's made some ties with former Forreston coach, now Guilford coach Denny Diddick as well. And it's great to see those connections. And, we've even seen where Dakota's Coach Joe Free, has been down to the clinic down in Quincy. So a lot of people getting around to meet these guys, see what they do that has been successful to help them out as well.
I like the enthusiasm.
Yes. Hey, Coach Big P. Excellent. Great. Thank you. Glad to have you on.
Good to see you.
It's great to have Shane back on set, at least to help out for tonight. It's excellent for sure. Let's see. Dupac will probably
Pack Grizz Blues. It's an interesting combination of teams there.
Yeah, definitely. Yes, Dupac is going to have a shot to definitely play with and beat Chicago Harlan. Harlan was a team that EPC matched up with last year and absolutely annihilated them in the first round. And, I like Dupac's chances against Harlan. Now, if you talk about their second round opportunity with Byron, I would have to state that while it seems far-fetched that Dupac cannot play with Byron, I will allude to the fact that Dupac played very well last night against Lena Winslow, despite the 52-21 loss. They were down 24-0 early in the first quarter, midway through actually, and they actually fought back and brought the score to a 24-14 score before Lena Winslow finally put the hammer down. But Dupac there early in the third quarter also had opportunities. They had an interception at the goal line, and they had a missed field goal. So,
Tight points.
Yeah. I mean, Dupec has opportunities to build, and yeah, if they score them 10 points, it's 52-31 instead of 52-21, and it's really a lot closer game than what it looks.
And another thing, like your comment says that they'll get absolutely destroyed by Byron, which, what that might be the case. However, something can be said is the fact that this is a new team in the grand scheme of things. This is a new team, a new program. If you go and get shellacked by Byron,
There's no shame.
there's no shame in that, and it actually shows you where you need to be, and also gets the kids experience, which when you're starting out, you kind of like to go in steps. I mean, very rarely do you ever see a new program go from 0 to hero.
Right.
So you got to get there. You can't do it overnight.
Yeah, I mean, not many teams can do what Rochester was able to do and be able to grow from a young team very quickly to becoming multiple state title champions as fast as Rochester has. And I use them as the example because what Coach Derek Leonard has done at Rochester has just been amazing. And I mean, same can be said if you look at Tim Rackey, who coaches at Nazareth Academy now, and prior to that had coached at Addison Driscoll when Driscoll was winning all those state titles in the early 2000s.
4A Kings.
Yeah, I mean, you just...
How many was it in a row? Seven in a row.
7. And then they lost in the quarterfinals. And then
the
they
world burnt to the ground.
Yeah, Driscoll had a hell of a run there in the early 2000s. Beardstown.
That's an interesting question.
Do you think Beardstown has one of the best backs in 3A? Well, I'm glad you bring that up, Marty. I do. I have watched Pascal play on film. Obviously, I've never seen him in person. I do like the dynamic that is Pascal Julevagai. Obviously, he is a guy that can get and has been receiving Division I looks. So I like what Pascal brings to the table. I think that he is a very elusive back. What Beardstown has him doing this year, basically running a wildcat offense, is putting the ball in his hands and letting him go to make the decision on, are we running the ball on a double sweep, or are we going to throw the ball downfield, which he obviously has a very good arm to get the ball downfield. And I really think that, he plays at a level that I don't care if it's 1A, 2A, or 3A. He is at a level that can definitely be elite. And obviously, Pascal's done a lot of things throughout his career that have shown that to be garnering Division I look. So, yeah, no, I definitely think that Pascal is definitely a back to watch in Class 3A and, quite frankly, across the state. I mean, he's one of those talents. I don't care what team you put him on. He's going to find success and be a difference maker at whatever team he plays on. Yeah, I'm a huge fan of Pascal. What are they feeding the kids in Lena Winslow, by the way? Well, don't we all want to know that?
Success. I mean,
That's basically it.
success breeds success.
It's funny that you say this. Had this conversation last night with a friend, and you just can't grow 6'6", 265 pounds. There's just no way to develop that. You get lucky sometimes. And quite frankly, Lena Winslow has been able to be lucky in the terms of having that type of play and growth in their system.
The frame, so to speak.
But when you talk about Lena Winslow football, one of the things that I constantly talk about when it comes to Lena Winslow is you got to take a look at what Coach Aaron and his staff have built from 1997 on. They've been together for a long time. And, Coach Aaron's been the head coach there for 23 seasons now. So most of his staff has been there. They most of his staff are also the head coaches of other programs. You have Coach Kyle Benson, who is the head basketball coach. You have Coach Kevin Milder, who is the head wrestling coach. The head baseball coach is also the head coach for the junior high football program. Lena Winslow has it instilled in their program to run a system that is conducive across multiple sports, which benefits what they do. I mean, you take a look at a player like Isaiah Bruce. Isaiah Bruce is huge on the football field. Obviously, he's going to Iowa. But you take a look at him on a basketball court. He's also in track and field, and he runs on the 100 and 200 meter teams or relay teams, and he's 265 pounds. I mean, at some point, you have to have a system in place. You have to believe in the system. Once you believe in the system, you have to get the buy-in to the system, and that's exactly where Lena Winslow is at. It's taken them a long time to get here, okay? They started in 1997. Obviously, they were before that, but I'm talking the Rick Aaron era started in 1997. That whole time, they went from chasing Galena to chasing Dakota to then playing cat and mouse with Dakota when they finally won their first state title in 2010. And once they got the monkey off their back, which really was in 2009 in the second round when they lost to Lexington in the semifinals, Lena Winslow just was able to say, hey, look, this is what we can do. And from there, they just went forward with it. And now everybody seems to be playing catch up with them. Well, Forreston finally caught up to them as well. And what Forreston has done is also a formula based off of what Coach Denny Diddick had done when he arrived there in 2008. He got all the coaches on board. Hey, this is what we need to do. They implemented weight room workout as part of their calisthenic and exercise program for every practice. And, you know, that's the difference maker. These guys are lifting all the time. I mean, they have junior high programs, yes, and not a lot of people put a lot of strength into the junior high program. But when you get them in there as freshmen and sophomores and you start putting them through this program, by God, by a junior year, you may not be looking at it, but they're there ready to go, and that's exactly what they do. And another thing is that they both those two programs hold their players accountable. I mean, you take a look at Forreston. They use upwards to 9 ball carriers in a single game. And they're expecting their second and third string running back to execute and play like the first string running back does. And that just builds constant success. And execution on top of execution, when it's being drilled into you that could be next man up, and when next man up comes and you're going to be the one that's relied upon, these guys buy into that, and they know that every facet of the team builds what they got to do.
Right. You know, just to top off on that, you touched on a little bit, but you're developing underclassmen as well. I mean, Lena Winslow, look at Robbie Valentine, you know, playing as a underclassman. You know, that's continued through their backs now, all playing at a younger level. You know, I always find it entertaining and funny that I'm not going to say specific programs by name, but they look at Lena Winslow that, you know, you get towards the end of the season and these programs are looking to the next year and, well, we'll have a chance because, you know, Lena's studs are all seniors. Well, the problem that they fail to realize is that the whole year Lena Winslow's been developing underclassmen. So what they don't see is that they're already reloading for the next year.
Yep.
So that by the time they look at it, they think, okay, when Ormiston's gone, we have a chance. But they don't see the sophomore. The highlight packages are pretty darn good.
Yeah, I mean, and case in point, I mean, you're not hearing this name a lot, but by next year, when Ormiston is gone, you're going to hear it, and that's that of Jack Setterstrom.
Yeah.
I mean, the kid's already getting carries, and he looks very, very impressive. And when it turns around the next year, you're going to see a lot of Mari Roby and Jack Setterstrom for Lena Winslow, and you still have Jennings Dunker, who is going to be there. And I guarantee you, you're going to see probably another 10, 15 pounds put onto Jennings' body, and he's going to be sitting there playing at 280, 290 pounds next year, and the kid doesn't look it. I mean, he is lean, he's fast, he's muscular. I compare him to Hunter Woodard of Tuscola just a couple years ago, where he's got that quick speed off first step, and he can catch up to you if you want to keep playing.
Logan Lee.
Yeah, Logan Lee's the same way. I mean, Logan Lee obviously was a little bit lesser size as far as weight, but very fast, very strong, very fast, quick to the ball, great read. And I mean, you can even go back further to Ty Harmston from Stockton back in 2012 and 2013. Same type of player.
Yeah.
And obviously, all those players that we're talking about were all Division I athletes at Iowa, Northern Illinois, things like that. So, Lena Wenzel, what they have going on is just their success in putting their program and sticking with it and expecting everybody to live up to those expectations. Anyway, let's go on.
Yeah. I was gonna say maybe we can continue in that, but keep sending the questions. I always enjoy them.
Athens, the Warriors. I really like Athens. They play a double wing type offense. They run a 3-4 type defense. They do a lot of great things. Out of the Sangamo Conference, a 1A team down there, so they're playing the likes of Williamsville and Maroa Forsyth and Pleasant Plains and Verdon North Mac every single year. You would think that in the Sangamo Conference that they would just get absolutely destroyed, but the Knox family does a great job down at Athens. Obviously, they're a byproduct of the Jim Unruh era at Carthage. And if you know anything about Jim Unruh and his Carthage offenses, obviously it was wing tee, 4 plays to the left, 4 plays to the right, complete execution every single time, and build up team speed as well. And, Athens does that with the QB, Jack Richards, and then you got the running backs with Dylan Fletcher, Nick Laird, Dason Davis, and Isaiah Cody. The Warriors are definitely a team to watch in 1A South. And, quite honestly, if you were to ask me about 1A South, you got Camp Point Central down there. I like Camp Point Central. I'm a huge fan of Coach Dixon and what he does. But if you were to tell me to pick my favorites, I'm going to tell you it's Central A&M and Athens. Both of them are on opposite sides of the bracket, which makes the opportunity for huge semifinal matchup.
Yeah. And I mean, we've really been looking at those couple teams the whole year.
Yeah. I mean, the only disappointment I have with 1A South is that Tuscola's not in it. I know that a lot of people that follow us aren't fans of having Tuscola in 1A South, but in my opinion, I like having Tuscola because you know what you're going to get out of Tuscola every single year, and that is state championship caliber football.
And they're fans of the best.
I love the air horns.
What was that guy's name who always gave us a hard time from Tuscola?
Seek and Destroy Boy.
Yeah. Destroyer Boy. Yeah. Gary says Stockton at Princeville Saturday at 1 p.m.
So there you go. Stockton and Princeville will be kicked off at 1 o'clock. We'll write that one down. Gary, thank you for that. Definitely appreciate it. And thanks for tuning in as well. Obviously, Gary's quite a long-time friend here, one of our friends from Stark County.
Best food in
Yes.
the state.
Gotta have a hog heaven. You ever get down to Stark County, have a hog heaven. Gary got me hooked on that. Thank you so much for that, Gary. And I definitely got to make my way back down to Toulon here soon. Stockton at Princeville, 1 o'clock kick. So there you go. And we'll keep getting you time updates, most likely through our media pages, both Facebook and Twitter, as they come rolling in.
Heck of a drive for some of the NUIC teams first round, even without 1 through 32. Yeah, especially West Carroll going to Fieldcrest. That's a pretty good haul as well. Lewistown, 1 o'clock. I think we're due next match.
Lewistown is playing Anawan and Weathersfield at 1 o'clock. Let's go back to Ryan's question about Newman versus GCMS.
Both are a little less than what they were last year. That'd be an interesting matchup, though.
it would be an interesting matchup. And, I really like what Coach Allen and his staff have done at GCMS. Obviously, we've been able to get razzed quite a bit from the Falcons in recent years, especially after their first championship year where they were getting ready to play Newman, and we projected that they would not make the state championship game.
Never let us
forget that, but, man,
they're fun people.
They have not let us forget that.
That's okay though.
But they rose to the occasion. They made it happen. Obviously, they had their 31-game win streak snapped earlier this year when they played Fieldcrest in a conference matchup in the Heart of Illinois Conference. GCMS Newman, I think that would definitely go the way of GCMS this year. I'm not sure if it would really be relatively close. I know GCMS is a little bit down, but I still think that GCMS is much more of a team to be reckoned with for the 2A state title game. I'd love to see a GCMS Fieldcrest rematch because that was a close ball game the first time around. I just think that Newman is good. They're always very disciplined, which makes them very good. It doesn't matter their size, the speed, talent level. They come out, they hit you, and that is a byproduct of what their program has been under Coach Popochi and now Coach Kresmer. But in that matchup, I'd like GCMS. I think the Falcons definitely have it going. What do I think about Dupac's first round? What do you think, Shane?
Dupac should be able to win.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Harlan last year when they played EPC, and Harlan comes out of the Chicago Public League, and if you pay any attention,
provided they play the game.
Well, that's true too. So obviously the CPS is on strike right now. The strike has to be resolved by Tuesday at the latest because you have to have 3 days of practice in order to play after having a week off. I think that you take a look where we're going, and Harlan last year against EPC really could have scored 100 points in that game last year if they wanted to. Obviously, Coach McNutt and his boys know better, and they kept it, fair game, right? But Harlan most CPS teams, not named Chicago Phillips, have issues with discipline that it's not talent level that they don't have. I mean, they have a boatload of talent, but they just don't play at the physical level that we play at, or that a lot of the conferences play at, whether it's out here in the NUIC, down south in the Sangamo, even when you get into the suburban conferences, the physicality is just at a different level than what the CPS plays.
Like a culture shock.
Yeah. And very athletic, very fast. You definitely got to plan for it and attack it. But more times than not, the CPS fails, especially when they come out this way. I can only remember Hales Franciscan team beating Aquin, but they took it to the mouth the very next week when they faced Lena Winslow. And to be quite honest, I mean, they only beat Aquin 24-10 in that season. So it wasn't like it was a blowout type of game. I do like Dupac against Harlan. What's your opinion on Beardstown making a push into 3A playoffs? Well, let's take a look here at the 3A playoffs. I think that Beardstown has a very good opportunity to make a run in 3A. You take a look, they're going to have a tough matchup. They'll get by Newton, no problem. They're going to have a tough matchup with Quincy Notre Dame. I do think that a lot of people think that Quincy Notre Dame is much better than what they are. I mean, I just don't think that QMD is as good as people make them out to be.
Everybody thinks they're better than, not them. I'm saying everybody thinks their team is better than what they are.
Well, this is true. I don't see anything that says, wow, watch out for Notre Dame. The team that I will say that they need to watch out for, though, is going to be coming in the quarterfinals, and that's going to be Williamsville. I know Mater Dei is sitting in that same little quadrant with Williamsville, and I think that's going to be a great second-round matchup there in 3A South. But I think the Bullets have the opportunity to get past that. And to be quite honest, 3A South, my favorite in 3A South is Williamsville to get to DeKalb. I like what Coach Coons does at Williamsville. Obviously, coming out of a very strong conference in the Sangamo, the Bullets are geared. I think Beardstown can get a run to the quarterfinals, provided that they play good football, they execute the way that they need to, and that they make the right changes to their offense if they get in a jam. I like the fact that, you don't just have Pascal at running back. You also have Avery Quigley there as well, which gives them multiple options to make things happen. As far as getting to the quarterfinals, I don't see them getting past Williamsville, provided that they can get past Notre Dame. I do think that they can get to the quarterfinals, though. I like where Beardstown's at.
Williamsville, though, I mean, that'd actually be a semifinal game as far as this bracket.
Oh, yeah.
Through the official IHSA here.
I'm looking at the wrong one.
Yeah. But nonetheless, I mean, it gets you another round further. So, I mean, all those points still hold true.
Yes.
It's just a later round because Williamsville is actually in the bottom of the southern bracket. So,
yep, there it is.
That.
So, Notre Dame still in the second round. Fairfield, yeah. So Fairfield is the one I was missing out on, the Mules.
Yeah.
It's
a toss.
Fairfield comes out of the Black Diamond Conference. I'm not going to sit here and tell you what I think about the Black Diamond Conference, but it's not a conference that has a lot of strengths.
Right.
You see the Black Diamond that's constantly one and done, two and done, and that's about as far as it goes. Granted, the WIVC is down this year, as noted and seen, and you saw it last year too. I mean, when CPC arrived at state, you knew that at least if you were anywhere familiar with what Forson and the rest of the state does, you knew that they were in for a game that was going to punch them in the mouth. And that's exactly what happened.
Yes, it was.
Beardstown, though, has a very good line. I have watched their line. They have good size. They get off the ball. They need to continually do that, though. Fairfield, they'll get by. Matt or die, they might not. So they still got to see Matt or die in the quarterfinals. That could be a game that could go in favor of Matt or die. But Beardstown to the quarters is probably my pick right now. GCMS Fieldcrest rematch. I was at that game. It could have went either way. That will be a great one to see again. You bet, Ryan. Hey, anytime. I definitely, like I said, definitely love watching GCMS. Obviously, Fieldcrest head coach is the cousin of Dupex's head coach, Tyler Hoffman. He's very familiar with what we do in the NUIC, has made many comments about not wanting to play against NUIC teams because he doesn't have much luck. Obviously, he's going to get his opportunity at another NUIC team again this year when he faces West Carroll for a second time now.
Right.
But I think Fieldcrest is definitely at a level where they're definitely state championship caliber team this year, and
that'll be an
obviously GCMS knows how to get it done. But as you've made points to me on numerous occasions about the HOIC being the new power conference, I mean, it's hard to argue with that. I mean, you go back to 2013 and you had state runner-up in Downs Tri-Valley, and then Tri-Valley wins state in 15, DMAC in 16, and then obviously GCMS each of the last 2 years. And even in there, I mean, we've seen teams like Leroy and Fisher and the Bunnies and El Paso Gridley be able to make some noise in the playoffs even at different levels. And I mean, the Heart of Illinois Conference is definitely on the map. Anybody that's overlooking them is stupid, and they need to pay attention to what they're doing in the Heart of Illinois Conference. I mean, that's definitely become a top conference when it comes to Class 2A football, and they've earned their respect. And a couple of years ago, you could say that they didn't have it, but they've definitely done it now.
Yeah.
I mean, when you get to the state championship game 5 times in 6 seasons and win 4 of them, that says a lot about what you got going on there.
Sounds familiar.
Mm-hmm. Very familiar. We're used to that success. A little sometimes our fans get a little too used to it, and then it becomes almost borderline cocky or arrogant, and that needs to settle down a little bit. But I mean, obviously, success breeds success, and good teams keep moving along.
Bears sounds lucky they went south. Okay.
Yeah, that's probably true.
That's
I
very
mean,
accurate.
I would say that Beardstown is lucky that they're in the South bracket, but I never had them projected in the North bracket. I know they kind of sit in that area where the North-South cut line is normally at, but, the whole time, every time I projected out every week, Beardstown was in the South. So you could call it luck, yes. In the North, it's definitely a little bit tougher, but still in the North, I think you got two teams to watch for, and that's Byron and Wilmington. Really, I would take
that would be a good one to see come to fruition.
I think overall, top to bottom, 1A is probably going to be your strongest conference strongest class between 1A to 3A, top to bottom. They just have a lot of teams that can do a lot of things this year.
Right. And, not to get too far off subject, it's funny because, you watch 1A, the game, and the 2A game, and the 3A game, and you really do have a hard time deciphering the talent levels. And then when the NFL team comes out in 4A,
Immaculate conception.
They're them and Bishop Mack are opposite sides again this year, and you might see that again.
That
4A.
It could be, but ICCP does have a loss this year to Wheaton St. Francis. Obviously, St. Francis comes out of the same conference as those two teams. They're not unfamiliar with the state championship games themselves either. And I know we're taking a little bit of a stretch here going into Class 4A, but you take a look at 4A South, and McNamara is definitely set up. And the only reason why we can bring this up is because we're going to see a team that comes out of this conference in Aurora Christian in Class 1A, and you take a look at what Aurora Christian did with both IC and with McNamara. Yeah, they only had a 10-point loss to McNamara, so that was pretty impressive. But 4A North, one team that you really got to watch out for, and they're not getting a lot of respect. And there's actually two of them, and that's Richmond Burton and Coles City. I mean, both those two teams can probably put up a good match with IC and St. Francis this year, but time will tell, and that's why we play them. But the way they're lined up is that could be your potential quarterfinals in 4A North.
And you have your local teams, Stillman Valley's back in the mix, taking on Dixon. And then also you got Genoa Kingston not too far away as well.
Right. Do I think 2A is tougher top to bottom than 3A? Definitely. Yeah. I think out of the three classes, 3A is definitely the weakest this year. There's no doubt about it. Actually, you're probably asking the wrong person, and I know a couple people have talked to me on this over numerous occasions, but each of the last couple seasons, I would take Forest and Alena Winslow in 3A and pretty much take them against anybody that they would go up against, and probably pick them as well. 2016 Forest was definitely a team that I would put up against anybody except IC in Class 3A that year, and same can be said for 2017 Lena Winslow. Both those teams were really good. Even Lena Winslow last year, even though they weren't the state champs, they were at that caliber where they could definitely match up with a lot of teams in 3A, and I would definitely take them in a matchup with Byron and Monticello and say, these boys can play with each other.
Right. And, something we always talk about that Lena Winslow-Tuscola matchup back in 2017, you just got to ask yourself to throw a little fun out here. Does Tuscola ever find that time out?
Yeah. Yeah. Boy, oh boy. I'm not sure what Coach Romine was thinking there, and he probably looks back at it and probably thinks the same, but it is what it is. It was a hell of a game, though, that's for sure. And Tuscola they were a load that year. There's no doubt about that. You don't get a Division I athlete by accident.
And he really did.
He was impressive.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Although a lot of people up here didn't really see it that way, but man,
I don't know how.
Very good.
I mean,
granted,
that's how Isaiah Bruce got found, was the play of Hunter Woodard and Isaiah's play against Hunter Woodard in that state championship game. As far as 2A, though, to answer your question, I do like 2A much better than 3A. And the reason why is you got quite a bit of teams here that can make some noise. Obviously, the number 1 seed is Knoxville. I know Knoxville's been getting some votes to be ranked or have been ranked at different times throughout the year. To be quite honest, they come out of the Prairie Land Conference. I'm not a big fan of the Prairie Land Conference. Seen too many times where 9-0 gets busted in the first round there. But you still have Sterling Newman. You still have Gibson City. You still have Fieldcrest. Clifton Central is another team. Obviously, Clifton Central can make a lot of noise. At one time this season, they were ranked number 1. They are undefeated. They will have a fairly easy path to the quarterfinals where they should meet up with a Fieldcrest team, which would be a very interesting matchup. Likewise, in that other part of the bracket, GCMS Newman in the second round, but that would be the tough one because I think whoever wins that game is definitely get to the quarterfinals there to play the other side.
I have another question here.
Sure.
Which teams 1 through 8A are primed for winning state again?
For winning state again.
So you want a list of the 8 state champions, or
Well, let's see. Last year in 1A,
you
you had Forreston, and I would say that Forreston right now is
a long shot.
they're not geared to win state. Could they win it? Definitely.
They have the talent.
They have the ability and the talent to do it, but as far as the opportunity to repeat, I don't see it happening. If you actually take a look at Class 1A, since it came to 8 classes, the 1A champion has never repeated in the 8-class system. So Forreston repeating is against the odds. Likewise, the runner-up from that state championship game has never won state the following year either. So that goes against CPC.
And I like that it's probably going to continue this
It probably will. As far as 2A, GCMS. I can definitely see GCMS being in the state championship conversation.
Repeat the 3P.
They have the opportunity to become a 3P. Obviously, they had that loss to Fieldcrest. They need to get by Fieldcrest in order to make that happen again. But once again, you can't count out Coach Justice and his Maroa Forsyth Trojans. I mean, we had not discussed Maroa Forsyth yet, but with talent that left Maroa, a lot of people were like, "Oh my gosh, the wheels are falling off down in Maroa," but they're not. And that's what people don't.
Business as usual.
Yeah. I mean, Coach Joseph has a program for a reason, and it's been very, very successful, obviously. And looking at the 2A South part of the bracket, I mean, they're going to be matched up with St. Teresa in a potential quarterfinal matchup, which should happen. And that, to me, is going to be the game that decides your 2A South state representative once we get to DeKalb on November 29th. Bismarck Henning is down there as well. I like what Bismarck Henning is doing, but keep note that they do have that loss on their record, the Chicago Hope. And to some people's credit, that's where they have Chicago Hope as a team that could potentially win 1A. I would not argue that fact. You take a look, like we've already mentioned, Chicago Hope in the playoffs the last 3 years has really pretty much been blown out in the second round of the Class 2A playoffs. And to be quite honest, you take a team like Lena Winslow, as we said, I would take Lena Winslow in the 2A playoffs this year.
They just got to keep it together. Honestly,
right.
I mean, we've talked a lot about 1A and given all the teams around here the coverage, but I mean, I think we can be in complete agreement and get this part over. If Lena Winslow plays their game, it's theirs to lose.
Yes, no, it definitely is. They got to come ready to play, though, because if they don't, they're going to get stunned just like they did to Forreston last year. As far as Class 3A, Byron, I definitely think Byron has it was Monticello. Monticello does not have a shot to repeat.
4A, yes.
4A, I see, definitely. I think that you can never count out Immaculate Conception. I mean, what they've done in the last 3 seasons is just amazing, obviously, and that's why their success factored up to Class 4A.
And if they do make it and you have nothing going on 7 o'clock on that Friday, go watch. They're a fun team to watch.
Oh, definitely.
Even from the start of warm-ups.
Always fun. Always fun. And let's take a look here. So Class 5A. Class 5A, we had the state champs were Joliet Catholic. And Joliet Catholic, that was a surprise story last year, obviously, as they entered the playoffs with a 5-4 record, had to win in week 9 to get into those playoffs. And then they go on and they win the state championship with that impressive win over Lombard Montini, a game in which I felt Montini was definitely favored in.
Well, it was only a 1-score game.
It was very close. As far as Joliet Catholic this year, I really haven't been paying much attention to what they're doing. Shame on me, but when it gets up to the upper levels, I really don't pay much attention.
Not enough around here to keep track of.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There's a nice comment to go in line with what we're already talking about.
Yeah. You guys still thinking Byron 1-3?
The rest still have you guys thinking Byron.
Well, that may be true. I mean, honestly, Ryan, you're right. I mean, when you take a look at the coaching legacy of what is Cullen Welter, obviously he's done a lot of great things, especially when he was at Aledo. I mean, he won multiple state championships at Aledo, moved down to Monticello after the Aledo and merger with whatever school it was. I can't even remember who the heck they consolidated with, but became Mercer County.
Aledo and
it was Joy Westmer. Anyway, I think that Coach Welter knows what he's doing. He's seen a lot in his years, and Monticello is very fast. They definitely hit hard. Honestly, I felt that game was evenly matched. Being down on the sidelines for that game, the size was comparative between both teams. The line play was very good on both sides. I just think that Monticello came up with the right plays at the right times. I mean, I know what you're saying. The touchdown catch in the end zone that was called incomplete, or was it the interception?
One interception, I think.
Yeah, the interception in the end zone. Yep, where it tipped out and whatnot. But I agree. That probably was a missed call.
That happens a lot. I mean,
but Byron overall matched up very well with Monticello. I think that game was definitely a toss-up and was a great 3A state championship game. As far as the score outcome, you're probably right. The refs probably helped keep the score closer, but as far as the two teams combined, very good football between the two. Back to 5A though, Joliet Catholic 6-3 in 5A. Where did East St. Louis land? They go 6A, right? Yeah, they did. I like, there's a lot of good teams. Obviously, Sterling is sitting there at 9-0, and they want to get there. Boylan is back on top of things, and they're no stranger to the 5A playoffs, being a former state champion. But a team that I really like there, you got Mount Zion and you got Rochester, and I think between those two teams, to me, I think that they would be a favorite right now. JCA plays good football, as they always do. Obviously, they've won the most state championships in state history. But I got to give a nod to the public schools. I like either Rochester or Mount Zion, and it's hard to pick there. 5A is going to be a lot of fun. 6A, who won 6A last year? Either way, it doesn't matter.
Grove, wasn't it?
I think so. Penn State.
I might be wrong, but I think Cary Grove did.
You're absolutely right. Yep.
Yeah.
They beat Crete Moneans.
It wasn't even a game.
Yeah. Yeah, and Cary Grove reminds me of Penn State with their uniforms, obviously, but I love the traditional look, but in 6A, there's only one team that's winning 6A, and that's East St. Louis. 7A,
Grange Park.
Naz. Jeez. Well, I mean, St. Charles North was there last year, and they're not even in the playoffs this year. Looking at it again this year, I would definitely say that Nazareth is definitely a good one to have the opportunity to repeat, provided that the CPS strike can hold. You know, you still got Chicago Phillips there, and you got Mount Carmel. The Caravan are back in there at an undefeated record. So,
which there they actually do get to go 1 through 32,
right?
Because they're so.
I think between one of those three teams is where your state champion is going to be. So Nazareth would have the opportunity to repeat. Class 8A Loyola Academy.
It's Brother Rice.
Yeah, you know, and
Brother Rice.
Don't mind they got that record backwards, but yeah, Loyola Academy won. I don't know, not sure, but anyway, Loyola Academy won last year. Obviously, they were in when they went in with a 5-4 record and came out with a 10-4. So a very similar storyline to JCA, where they just go in and they make things happen. This year, I would say you got to take a look at Manuka. I mean, Manuka is really good. Warren is really good. And one team that I really like to watch is Glenbard West. I think in 8A, Glenbard West can do a lot of damage. Of course, you got Lincoln Way East 2 there. So 8A is going to have
Naperville all the way down.
8A is going to have quite a bit to go on. I mean, Homewood Flossmoor's back up in there too. As far as Loyola, though, I don't see Loyola repeating as state champions this year. I just don't think that they will get it done. Do they have an opportunity? Yes, they do, despite their 6-3 record. Obviously, like I said, they came in at 5-4 last year. They're a very good team, but there's a lot of teams in 8A that can get it done this year, and I just don't see Loyola doing it. Anyway, where were we going? We're going back to Class 2A.
Talk a little bit about West Carroll and Fieldcrest.
Yep, we can definitely talk about West Carroll. So what I like about the Thunder, obviously, is the play of Derek Tracy, the quarterback. Obviously, Derek Tracy does a lot of great things. He's very fast. He can throw the ball deep. He's had some issues with accuracy this year, but some of that's just the overall play of the teams that he's gone up against. But he can definitely be a difference maker, and that's one of the things that if you take a look at his game against Forston, he was definitely there in that game. He will provide some opportunity for frustration for Fieldcrest to begin with. And what they need to do is they just need to come out ready to play. Obviously, they're going to be familiar with what Fieldcrest wants to do, wants to run, because they've seen them already before. They just got to stick with it.
Long, sustained drives, eat clock. I mean, that's kind of what you got to do when you're the underdog in a big game like that. You know, the best offense or the best defense sometimes can be an offense that moves the ball. You don't necessarily have to score, but put some first downs together, chew time off the clock.
Yeah, definitely. And if you do that, you're going to keep yourself the opportunity in the game.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I mean, I like Fieldcrest in this matchup, though.
I do too.
You know, I think they're just on a different level. And West Carroll's kind of been one of those teams that from the start of the season, and at the time when they beat Dakota, that was considered a big win. And then, especially even, you know, they're building up to that close loss with Forston, and then they kind of, you know, tapered down. And then towards the end of the year, they kind of faded into the playoffs.
Right. Yep.
So,
yep.
Can the Thunder get back up on the upswing of the roller coaster is the question.
And you know, I would not be surprised if
this game's closer than what people think.
I agree. And that's exactly where I was going, because West Carroll just has a knack for playing those types of games with those players.
Yeah. Hope the teacher strike gets resolved. If not, it's going to really put a damper on the playoffs with buys. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
I don't want to see any freebies and it really doesn't help these teams.
It doesn't help the teams, but it's not fair to the kids in the Chicago public school
Right.
system either. I mean, they've earned their right to be in the playoffs. They deserve to play a playoff game, and shame on adults to have to do this at this juncture in the season.
Yeah.
If they wanted to go on strike, they should have done it at the beginning of the year. That's
But
my personal opinion, but I'm not going to get to the political side of that stuff.
Right. I mean, I know that they were making progress according to multiple reports out there, but the grand scheme of things is, these talks aren't resolved over the weekend, so they literally have 2 days to get something done when they come back Monday. So fingers crossed that the deal gets worked out. But
yeah, based off the court proceedings yesterday and all the hearings that were going on, it seemed like that they were going to come to resolution on Monday. It definitely has to be done by Tuesday.
And these are things
That very well could be. So the question was, do you think the teachers use the playoffs as leverage?
Yeah, absolutely.
It very well could be to help get things moved through quicker to keep it fair for the kids.
Nobody wants to be known as the people that took something away from kids.
Right.
So, absolutely.
Wouldn't be surprised by that one bit.
It's politics. It's politics.
It's all politics. Damn politics. Anyway, back to Class 2A teams to watch. Obviously, Maroa Forsyth looking for their fourth consecutive state title game appearance. It would be their fifth time in the past 6 years that they get there. Granted, they've been runner-up every year that they've been there since 2014. Their last state championship came in 2012 when they beat the NUIC in Class 1A when they won 48-24 against the Stockton Blackhawks.
It's kind of nice watching them down there, though. You get to see different jerseys out of the 500 jerseys.
Maroa Forsyth is definitely the Oregon Ducks of IHSA football, and it's a lot of fun to see their different jersey collections. Obviously, they've done a lot.
Jackets.
Oh yeah,
you don't really see schools that many schools that have Letterman jackets, but every one of their players seems to.
Well, I love that. I love the coaching jackets when you see
every patch.
Justice come on and he's got his cream-colored jacket with all the state patches on it. It's really fun to see, and it just shows you, the amount of success that they have. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't mean to get you in your feels, but Maroa's just they're that team, man. They're just so much fun to talk about because they're there every year. I mean,
they've earned it.
You get that with those guys. And one team we haven't talked too much on a little bit, Bismarck Henning. And Bismarck Henning, obviously they're really good. The problem with Biz Hen is they have a long process where they don't get past the second round.
No.
I mean, you take a look, and their best playoff run came back in 2014 when they were in Class 1A, and they lost to Carrollton. And granted, the Carrollton players from that 2014 team state that Bismarck Henning was their toughest game outside of Forest in that year. And but outside of that season, they really haven't had a lot of strengths. And they're a very tough team. They have a good sized line. They like to run the ball behind their all-state running back Caleb Leahy. And can they be too one-dimensional at times? Possibly, but we have a lot of teams that are very one-dimensional that have a lot of success.
The majority of the teams up
there. I mean, I don't know how many people remember Carthage from 1998 to 2000. Yeah. I'm sorry I keep going back there, but that's an era of a team that just sticks out the most to me, probably because I played against them. But, Jim Unruh would throw 26 balls a game, and in 1998, it was the last pass, was his only pass of that game, and went for the game-winning touchdown to beat Sterling Newman 30-26 for the state championship game. So obviously, you can get things done multifaceted. Yeah, you're right. Biz Hen should get the matchup with Nashville. There are quite a few people. I think it's Mr. Caudle, who wants to see Nashville get matched up there. And, there again, though, Biz-Hen, Nashville, pick it. Where do you want it to go? Nashville has not had a lot of playoff success. I just don't see where Nashville does a lot of things that can, keep things going.
Right.
As far as playoff duration and length of time, I think that Biz-Hen would be favored in that game. I personally like Biz-Hen in that game, and people can sit there and say Nashville this, Nashville that, and they're doing good, but let's take a look and see what kind of competition they've actually played. Now, granted, you can argue the same for Bismarck Henning. They don't play a whole lot of competition either coming out of the conference that they're in down there in the Vermilion Valley Conference. But they have at least somewhat of a history of putting teams into long playoff runs as well. If I were to take a look and see where this game would come out at, our friend at Cal Prep says that Bismarck Henning wins this game 40-31. So
It's pretty high scoring.
it's a high scoring game. So what's that tell you about both teams and their defense? Obviously, they rely a lot on offense, but their defense has a lot to be desired. And that's exactly where I see either team's demise come playoff time. They can score points, but a good defensive team's going to shut them down and shut them out. So that's my thoughts there on that. But as far as that game, whoever wins it, I feel you're going to get matched up with Pana, and Pana's doing good things there. Even despite the unfortunate circumstances around Coach Higgins and his family that they had to deal with, all that stuff. But I think Pana is definitely a team to watch out for, because you got a bunch of boys that want to put things together for Coach Higgins this year. We haven't really talked too much about them, and they're the number one seed down there. Granted, seeds don't mean nothing when it comes to playoffs because it's all on playoff points, but
going against Red Bud. So.
Yeah, they'll get by Red Bud, and they're going to get by the winner of Oakwood and Nokomis. I don't have any doubt about that one.
Then you look at that quarterfinal match.
Right. So, Pana's going to be in the quarterfinals. You might as well just mark it up right now. There's nobody that's going to stop them except themselves. Back to another team to watch in Class 2A, though. I don't see. My favorites for the state championship game, in 2A South are Moreau Forsyth and St. Teresa. I definitely see an Auburn-Moreau Forsyth second round game. Chester is one of those teams that's there at the 7 seed, Auburn at the 10 seed. I think Auburn takes care of Chester in that game.
More game time.
All right, so Beardstown is going to be hosting their first round playoff game on Saturday at 1:00, and CPC Camp Point Central will be hosting theirs Saturday at 2:00. So those that want to know the game times there you go. St. Teresa with Hamilton County. So really, you got St. Teresa basically has a first round bye into the second round, as does Tuscola with Flora. So you're going to get a rematch of St. Teresa and Tuscola in the second round. And that's awesome unless you're the Central Illinois Conference and you got two teams matching up in the second round. Granted, I just don't think originally I thought Tuscola would go 9-0, St. Teresa 8-1, but after watching those games, St. Teresa definitely has a little bit better play than what Tuscola has thus far. Best first round games, matchup in 1A or 2A.
I was just looking through this.
Class 1A, I think Class 1A North best game hands down. Orangeville, Chicago Hope. I think that's the best first round game. Second one would probably be or at least in my mind, the intrigue of Lena Winslow, Aurora Christian. And I can definitely see the game between Stockton and Princeville being relatively a good game.
Yeah.
1A South. Best matchup. I like the game with Greenfield Northwestern and Brown County. I think those two teams can definitely play with each other, as noted this past week. And I think that's going to be a game that you're going to see there. I would not be surprised if Salt Fork gives Camp Point Central a game. We've seen Salt Fork come up with some big games here in recent years. It's not the first time they've been 5-4 taking on a top seed. A couple of years ago, they knocked off Stockton in that same type of format. So we did that in the whole champ, but definitely those two games in 1A South. In Class 2A, top games. What do you think? Top games, Class 2A. What do you got?
2A? I was just looking at the 3A bracket, to be honest with you. I got to go back here to 2A.
Yeah, Ryan, I agree. That game was something else. I was actually at the EPC first round game that day with who did they play? Rock Ridge, and then I got over to Stockton there late in the second quarter when Fox threw the touchdown pass to send the score into a tie at half, and then it was just back and forth after that.
Right, and for 2A, you look not so much this year, but if you look at past years and that Sterling Newman Oregon game, that's one that over the past years have had some pretty good matchups there.
Which one
was when Newman played Oregon?
Oh yeah,
I
definitely.
mean, that was a game last year, wasn't it?
It was, and it was very close.
Very close.
And Oregon won it.
Right, and that's a first round matchup this year. Obviously, Oregon at 5-4 and Newman at 8-1. But definitely, and then in the South, we look at that. We've already kind of touched on that you like Auburn over Chester as the 10 and the 7 seed. So I mean, that's definitely a game.
I don't think that game's going to be close, though.
Right.
I just don't.
For seeding purposes, though, I mean,
for seeding purposes, it's a big game.
Yeah. So,
but Chester comes out of the Black Diamond Conference there again.
Right.
The Black Diamond Conference is fun in the Black Diamond, but you just don't see a lot of success of those teams coming out of there.
And for 2A's purposes, you kind of almost look to the second round for the question because, you could have a Tuscola and St. Teresa matchup.
2A is going to get fun once you get into the later rounds.
Right.
I agree.
So 2A, I mean, at least that's what I think. I mean, the first round,
the first good
right
quarterfinal.
So
games.
you go down the bracket and you look, right off the bat, Knoxville and Rockford Christian. Well, we just discussed how Rockford Christian got in last night by beating Marquette. So I mean, you don't figure they'll make a lot of noise. And you go on down the line with Newman and Oregon, not the same kind of matchup it was in years past. But Sterling Newman's also not the team that they were years past. So there's always opportunities for teams to win that aren't supposed to, but you never know. But as far as we're concerned up here with West Carolina Fieldcrest, that's a big one for us.
Yeah, definitely. As far as Class 3A, good first round games.
I mean, I do think the Dupac Harlan game will be good.
Yep, Dupac Harlan could be a good game. Like I said, I like Dupac in that game. I just think they're going to bring a different level of physicality. One game that I would not be surprised by is that of North Boone and Princeton. Princeton comes out of the Three Rivers. North Boone comes out of the Big Northern.
Which has Byron in it.
Which that's where Byron and Stillman Valley sit.
Valley, Genoa Keys.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, they're
And that was a three-way tie, so they're battle tested.
tested.
And that's a 1 seed versus 16 seed. I would not be surprised if North Boone can play with Princeton in that game. I mean, Princeton's one loss is to Sterling Newman, but we've also seen what Newman did to Morrison. And a lot of people say that Princeton could have, should have, could have, would have beat Newman. That's all fine and dandy, but they didn't.
Which it all kind of goes back to what we've been saying all night. You look at the 1 seed in 3A lost who a middle seed in 2A that lost to a 4 seed in 1A. So, I mean, it's kind of the domino effect there.
So West Carroll will be traveling to Fieldcrest on Friday night. That will be a 6:00 kick on Friday night in the first round.
That surprises me a little bit.
West Carroll at Fieldcrest
Friday night,
on a Friday night.
4 hours away.
Hey, might have to make that drive.
There you go.
It'll be fun.
Easy place to get to.
Provided I can get Carrie to come with me. By the way, we got to give a shout out to Carrie. All the playoff graphics, everything on our website, everything that we do, even this setup with what you have here, with the YouTube channel and all that. That's all Carrie. Carrie does all that. As nothing that I do. I just get on here and I talk away. So she is definitely the huge runner of everything that we have going on here. She gets everything set up for us. So, huge round of applause for her, because without her, the show doesn't run.
Do you think playing a conference opponent in round 1 is a bummer? I think the IHSA should not match up conference opponents in round 1. It's going to happen.
I think the way that the conferences are these days,
it's
too hard not to happen. I mean, you take
Right.
a look like the NUIC. I mean, you got 14 teams in the conference, and 7 of them are going to, possibly 8 of them at some point in time, can qualify for the playoffs. Most of them coming in 1A, and you're seeding 1 through 16. You're going to see it happen.
Last year it happened.
In the WIBC, you're going to see it happen. You got 12 teams in that conference. You get 6 teams in the playoffs. Again, mostly a 1A conference. You're going to have it happen.
Tell you what,
Do I like it?
I mean,
No, but there's no good way around
There's
it.
no, well, I mean, there's a great way around it.
Well, yeah,
the state of
1 through
Illinois won't do that, because 1 through 32 kind of eliminates that. I mean,
To a degree.
To a degree.
There's still the opportunity of it happening. I mean, 1 through 32 is not perfect.
Thanks, Dale Heinkel, for tuning in.
Excellent. Thanks, Dale. Appreciate it. So we're going to keep going on, because obviously we got people that want to keep hearing what we have to say. So if you guys got more questions, feel free to bring them forward. We definitely will keep going on as long as you keep going. Shane doesn't have to get to bed yet.
Soon. 10 o'clock.
Yeah, no,
Is it
we're
10
good.
o'clock?
Yes, it is.
It's 10 o'clock. What's up, people?
As far as 3A South, good games in 3A South to touch back. I know some people are looking at that 8-9 matchup with Greenville and Quincy Notre Dame.
It's a good one.
I think last year Greenville was a quarterfinal team, and obviously Quincy Notre Dame in there. That could be a good matchup for that game there.
Coin and Monticello.
DeCoy Monticello could be another good one.
It's up there.
Yeah, Monticello has fallen off a little bit from last year, what they were, but DuQuoin, coming out of the Southern Illinois River to River Conference, tends to always be a relatively tough game. Vandalia at the 3 seed, even though they're 9-0, somebody a while back asked me what I thought about Vandalia, and I said, and there again, I said, well, they come out of this conference that hasn't bred a lot of success. And Vandalia is good. I mean, they do a lot of good things. They're definitely better than what I thought that they were going to be this year. So it'll be fun, but there again, I think playing North Mac in the first round, coming out of the same bowl, that's going to be an opportunity for North Mac to make some noise. North Mac hasn't done a whole lot to make noise, but coming out of the same bowl, a lot of teams are relatively quiet until, you get there. Yeah, thanks, Travis. I getting 7 teams in a 12-team conference, pretty damn good. No doubt about that. Where the hell is Vandalia?
South.
Yes, I know they're south.
Way down south.
Anyway, I think that possibly North Mac can have a game with Vandalia. Carlinville and Mount Carmel would be the other one in 3A that I would take a look at. And, if you go to the Snake Pit in Mount Carmel, you might see a good game there. It's kind of a road trip for the Cabbies to get there, but should be a good game. I've never been to the Snake Pit, but I've seen pictures of it, and I've only heard good things about it.
Yeah, Vandalia plays in the South Central.
There you go. Thank you. That's what it was, the SEC. Same conference as Carlinville. How about Mount Carmel creeping around down there this year? You haven't really heard much. Well, and you're right, Ryan. And part of the reason why you don't hear much about Mount Carmel is because they sit down there in that southeast corner right on the Indiana border, and nobody pays attention to them until they show up at state like 2011 and play Aurora Christian. But Mount Carmel tends to put some good teams together. They often are playing in the Indiana conferences where they tend to do fairly well to get themselves here, and then they make some noise when it comes to the playoffs. And it'll be interesting to see what they do and how much they've definitely have paired up this year. Taking a look at what the Aces have going on, I really couldn't tell you a whole lot because, just like you said, haven't heard a whole lot about Mount Carmel outside of the fact that you just know that, they're going to show up, they're going to give you a game. They play good football overall. I just don't see them as a contender to Williamsville, though. I just don't see where it's going to happen. I would like to say otherwise, but I just don't. But sitting at 8-1, they're definitely a team to watch out for. Their one loss did come to Lincoln High School in Vincennes, Indiana, where they lost that game 14-6. But you take a look at some of the schools that they've played here in Illinois, and Harrisburg and Richland County, East Alton Wood River, and they really haven't put those teams away like you would expect a 3A state championship level team to do. So Mount Carmel's creeping around, but I just don't see him doing much. All right, so what other questions we have? Dale. Vandalia is on Route 51. Good hour and a half south of Lincoln.
I know where Vandalia
Yes.
is.
I've been through Vandalia,
Yes.
Dale. I
This is
have.
the original capital of Illinois.
Second, Kaskaskia
Oh.
first. But, no,
Before it
definitely.
was moved to Springfield.
You got to go through Vandalia to get to
Final Four for 1A. Ooh, that's a good one.
Pat. Yeah. Patrick Cease.
You give yours?
Your Bulldogs look pretty good for a Final Four appearance, but we'll take a look here. What do you think, Shane?
My Final Four has got to be, you're looking at Final Four for. I would take Lena Winslow, and you look at that Morrison Forest matchup. And that's just that's a tough one to pick. And also looking at whether or not there's any upsets along that and determining where that game would be played at might have a huge role in that as well. And whether or not, Forreston is able to curtail the things that we've talked about tonight, hanging onto the ball and stuff like that.
Yeah, no, definitely.
But I would say that my Final Four in the North, however, would probably be Forreston, Morrison, Lena Winslow. And, if we do get to an Akron Stockton rematch, that might be a lot closer than the first time around.
Yeah, I was at that first game, and yeah, I mean, I would agree. I mean, that was all the way back in week 2, so a lot of things change when you go from week 2 to the quarterfinals. And
Oh, see, Ryan even says he wants a rematch with the Bulldogs, but see,
but at Stockton, yeah, we all want to play it.
I would personally say though, Forrest and Morris, probably Akron and Lee Winslow
for the quarters.
For the quarters, for the Final Four of the North, and then in the South, you're looking at probably A&M and Athens coming out of the South for the Final Four there.
I mean, if you take a look at the quarterfinals in 1A South, I mean, okay, so I'm going to start quarterfinals 1A North. I like Forreston and Morrison, and the winner of that game right now, the way they're playing, I'd have to say Morrison. A little love lost there, huh? Little rivals going at it. In the other bracket, I like Lena Winslow and I like Akron to be in the quarterfinals. Sorry, Ryan Nadig. I like Akron in the quarterfinals.
That was a quarterfinal matchup a couple years ago.
It was. No, second round. Lena Winslow. Oh wait, yeah, Lena Winslow Akron was a quarterfinal. You're right. It was 67-28 in favor of Lena Winslow.
Yes.
That was in 2017. As far as who gets to the semifinals in 1A North, I like Lena Winslow for sure. And at this time, I would say Morrison over Forreston. 1A South, quarterfinals. I'm going to go with Moweaqua Central A&M and Arcola. And then on the other side of the bracket, I will go with Argenta Oriana and Athens. Getting to the semifinals there is definitely going to be Moweaqua Central A&M and Athens.
Here's an interesting question coming from Greg. Lewin is obviously the clear-cut favorite in 1A North, but if something crazy were to happen, like last year, what team or teams have a shot to advance to DeKalb?
Greg, that's a great question.
For me, out of the teams we just listed, any of them have a chance.
I definitely would say your top teams to have a shot at state outside of Lena Winslow.
Gotta be Akron.
I would say Akron. I would say Forreston. I would say Morrison. And I would say Anawan Wethersfield. Any one of those teams would definitely have a shot of making it to the state finals. I think obviously Lena Winslow is at a different level than all, but they have to show up to play. And like Shane stated, last year they didn't show up to play. And it happens. If you're dealing with 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, stuff happens.
It's easy to look at a paper and say we killed them the first time.
Yeah. Maybe their girlfriend breaks up with them. Their parents get divorced. Something happens. Mentally, sometimes they just don't handle it. Stuff happens. But provided they take care of business, Lena Winslow is definitely a favorite. Any one of those teams that we mentioned would get by them if they don't come ready to play. So semifinals, Final Four. To answer the obvious question, Morrison, Lena Winslow, Central A&M, and Athens. Class 2A. Who you got there, Shane?
2A, I'm going to obviously I like Fieldcrest getting there. GCMS, I haven't looked at it that close. Obviously, we talked about those matchups potentially happening again. And then, in the South, my Final Four would obviously be Maroa, Forsyth, and Decatur, St. Teresa, somewhere in there. Up in the North, you have GCMS and Fieldcrest on the opposite sides of the North. So that would be an actually easier bracket to determine the Final Four compared to the 1A.
I like what Patrick and Ryan are going back and forth here. So just so you guys are both clarified, Akron has never lost to Stockton, period, in the playoffs, regardless if it's in Freeport at Conley Field or in Stockton at Old Boyle Field. Akron is undefeated against Stockton in the playoffs. Boom, drop the hammer. All right. Sorry, I cut you off.
Hear a word I said.
I did.
Okay. I think 2A is a lot easier to determine the Final Four teams if you're looking at the bracket.
I would agree.
I would say Gibson City and Fieldcrest, and in the South, I would go with Maroa, Forsyth, and what I already said, Decatur, St. Teresa. So
Yes, I would agree. I say the top
although
half of the
that
bracket.
wouldn't be the final four because they'll meet in the quarters. But you look at what we talked about. Can Bismarck take the next step to get to the semifinals?
That first quadrant in 2A North, you have Knoxville, Rockford Christian, Watsika, and Tremont. And to be quite honest, I would not be surprised. Knoxville could do it. Obviously, they're undefeated, but I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Watsika or Tremont come out of there and get to the quarterfinals. But to get to the quarterfinals and be the winner, I definitely would say the winner of GCMS Sterling Newman, of which I've already mentioned. GCMS is my favorite there. Fieldcrest on the other side for the semifinal. Down in 2A South, like Bismarck, Henning, and Pana. I mean, that just looks like a very good, tough matchup that can happen.
Yeah.
Who'd you pick on that one?
Moral Forsyth and Decatur, St. Teresa in the bottom part.
Yes, I would definitely agree. The bottom quarters, Merle, Forsyth, and St. Teresa, which I got Merle, Forsyth in the semis.
These are official picks because I've won 2 out of the last 3 bracket challenges in 2A. So you want to pay attention here to what I'm picking.
As far as the top half, Nashville, Bizhen, Pana, who'd you get going to the semis between those 3?
I didn't really pick.
Oh, well, you should. 2A champ.
Yeah. Vivian? No.
No, it's not going to be Oakwood.
Exactly. Nashville has a good chance. So does, if Bismarck shows up the way, if they can get there. I like Pana, though. The plan, the purpose. Yeah.
Yeah, I think Pana is my pick to get to the semifinals as well, to take on Merle Forsyth. Obviously, I got Merle Forsyth favored to go to state.
Pana, my bad.
Pana.
Our apologies.
You're right. You're absolutely right, Ryan. It's Pana. I know. I always say it.
You also say Leroy weird, too.
It's Leroy.
No, it is not.
Ryan, is it Leroy or Leroy?
Leroy. Let's wait right here.
Come on, Ryan. Tell us. Yeah, that's what I thought. It's Leroy. See? Told you.
Leroy. Thank you. It's definitely Leroy. Yeah, see?
All right. Well,
see the E.
Well,
is
the way
lowercase, and then
yeah.
it goes in, so it's 2 separate words. Leroy.
It's
one.
French, man. Leroy. Either way, Leroy. Got it.
French football.
3A. Go to 3A. What do you got in 3A?
Dupeg.
Not.
No,
I'm just saying. Sorry, Dupeg fans. I love you, but I don't have you getting there.
Honestly, I like. You're looking at in the quarters. You're looking at that huge matchup, Byron and Wilmington. That's going to be a big one, and then on the top part, you have Princeton, North Boone, which we also said could be a good one. We didn't really talk about Peatone and Spring Valley Hall at all.
We did not, and
Not at all.
that's definitely a game to watch out for in the first round.
It's a tosser.
It would be a toss-up game. Hall, obviously, out of the Three Rivers, Peatone out of the Sangamon Valley Conference, and push come to shove, I think that I like Hall.
Yeah. Because when
And
we were first looking at these brackets, we were taking Dupec over Peatone.
yeah,
Last night or the day before or whatever.
yeah.
So
As far as the quarterfinals for me in 3A North, I definitely like. Oh God.
yeah, you know what? I'll take
Princeton for sure.
I'll take Princeton and I'll take Byron.
Yeah, in the
Byron.
semifinals,
Yes.
yes, definitely Byron.
And then in the South,
The South,
In the South, I'll take 2 teams.
Well, it's going to be Williamsville for sure in
Right.
the semifinals.
And then you have.
And then the winner of Beardstown Mater in the semis.
I'll throw you a curveball. I like Notre Dame.
You can take Notre Dame. I'm going to take Mater Dei. I like Mater Dei getting to the semifinals to take on Williamsville.
So there we have it. Keep the questions coming if you got them. Still have a couple hours here yet.
Going back into Class 1A, where we're obviously
Right.
have a lot of coverage with the majority of our teams here sitting there. Anawan Weathersfield is one of those teams that just really interests me, and that's because of the play of Quagliano. And I know that my good friend Ryan keeps giving me crap all the time on Anawan Weathersfield and their strong schedule, of which they did. But they do come out of the Lincoln Trail Conference, and the Lincoln Trail Conference has not been as strong. Now, Anawan Weathersfield was in the Class 2A semifinals and back-to-back years here recently, but that was also at the same time that Stark County was getting to state championship games.
Yeah.
Or at least playing deep into the playoffs. Well, since they broke their streak of consecutive playoffs at 23 years and have not been back since, Stark County's kind of fallen off the table here rather quickly. Anawan, Weathersfield, and Princeville have kind of really taken over the LTC, but it really hasn't been all that.
It's not dominant.
It's not dominant, no. And I mean, even Mercer County has kind of fallen off a little bit. Especially, I mean, Coach Hofer is there now, which Coach Hofer was at Polo prior to getting to Mercer County. And, he's trying to get the things going there that they have going.
Yeah.
I mean, he's been able to keep them rather competitive, but in comparison, I just don't see where the Titans match up with some of the upper echelon of Class 1A. I mean, they're definitely undefeated. They're definitely a team you can't overlook because they're very dangerous. But, if they still had the Burris kid like they had 2 years ago, I would say, yeah, watch out for them. I mean,
and another thing to think about, though, with them is that second round game. Forreston is a tough place to go and get a win.
Yeah, it is. Forreston is very tough. You take a look at the only team to have regular success in Forreston is Lena Winslow, where they're 10-1 all time against the Cardinals.
Right.
Everybody else has a hard time winning in Forreston. If you take a look at Forreston's home record in that time, they have a 76% winning percentage, I believe, at home. It's somewhere up there. It's pretty high. It's ridiculous high. But
even on years where they haven't always been dominant, they've been really hard at home.
Yeah.
I mean, you think back to the years where Lena and Dakota were going back and forth with each other, and you looked at the schedule, and nobody really wanted to play Forreston at Forreston.
Yeah, I agree. Going back to Morrison, one kid that really stands out to me is Hunter Newman. He's only a sophomore. He's their running back, number 23. Really good, really fast. Runs hard, plays really well. The other one is Keegan Anderson. He is a senior. He's number 6. Also super fast. Does an awesome job. The problem I have with Morrison is not their defense. Their defense is going to attack you. They're going to close off the edge. They seal up the middle. They play gap responsibility defense really well. What I see being the issue with Morrison is the fact that they're inconsistent at times in their offensive schemes. I was able to watch their game with Fulton. I watched their game with Riverdale, and I have to say that Greg is completely wrong about Riverdale. Riverdale, to me, is not a team that I would say is on the verge of making the playoffs. Watching Riverdale play reminded me of watching, East Dubuque play. a team that, can be good if they can put it all together. But if they don't, they get shellacked. And that's, in my opinion, that's Riverdale. Morrison beat them 16-3. So obviously Morrison has things to work on. But they're definitely a team that we have to keep an eye on because they are good. They're dangerous, and they are better.
And that can also be a team that plays up to the competition because look what – I mean, regardless of whether Newman's down or not, for them to go from what were they, 2-7
last year,
to beating a Newman team, I mean, that's not only a physical challenge, but that's a mental challenge as well.
Yeah.
To rise to the opportunity. I will say this. Newman might not be as great as they were last year, but if Morrison wasn't afraid of playing Newman, they're not going to be afraid if they get a chance to play against the Lena Winslow.
Right.
Because in their minds, Newman has been the Lena Winslow.
Right.
And
correct.
we've beaten the Lena Winslow. So if they ever do get the opportunity to beat or to play them, they're not going to have that mental block going.
Right. Definitely. I do. I like Morrison. They're definitely a team that you cannot overlook because they're gonna want to prove people wrong.
I miss their old jerseys though. Just so
Yeah.
you know. It just doesn't look the same.
I don't know. I'm glad they got rid of the blue trim though. I like the straight red and white. I hate the blue trim. That blue trim just
Just
throws
looks
it
too
off.
modern.
I don't care. Modern's fine. Wilmington 3-1 against Byron all time. Yes.
3-2.
And no, I think
It's-
me personally, I like Wilmington over Byron. I
the
think.
trim was great. See, Greg knows what's up.
Oh, come on, Greg.
Too simple. Yeah, I see.
It does, but so does Penn State. Penn State looks awesome.
Don't compare your program to Penn State.
Okay, Michigan. Michigan looks awesome. Go blue. There you go. See, Ryan's on my side.
Is he talking about the uniforms or is he talking about us?
I don't know. Don't care. Wilmington, Byron. Anyway, back to that one. Yes, I do like Wilmington. Wilmington is my North representative in 3A. I think I think you're going to see Wilmington, Williamsville state championship game, which would be a repeat of the 2013 or 2014 state title game, whatever it was.
You're taking Wilmington?
Yeah, I like Wilmington.
Okay.
Their only loss is to Coal City.
Yeah.
And it was a close
I
loss.
was just trying to remember what you said a few minutes ago. Was the
Semifinals, I had Wilmington and Byron.
okay. You never said who. Okay.
But overall, I like Wilmington in 3A. Either way, I'm really stoked to watch the state championship game in 3A because that's going to be about the only time you're going to see a game in 3A. And that's just what I feel. I mean, a state championship level game.
Well, and if, Dupac advances to play Byron in the second round, maybe you'll get an opportunity to go to Byron and see them play beforehand.
Yeah, no, I mean, so Dupac Byron, we'll touch base on that. So Dupac Byron, I think, will be a game that Byron wins. Do I think that Dupac can compete in that game? I do. And the reason why is because they can do some things that will change things around. The problem is like last night, they only had 11 yards rushing, of which if you take the starters of Lena Winslow and put them back into the game,
How bad was it?
Dupac had like negative 21 yards rushing.
One-dimensional, and it's hard to win.
Right, correct. They have to throw the ball. They have to be precision-based. Because if you shut down their run game, you're going to force them to do one thing, and that's throw. But that's what they're really good at. So you're playing to their strengths there. But I do like Byron in that matchup with Dupac. Back to 1A. Any other questions? Keep coming. Keep coming. Love the questions.
Anything at all, you can ask it.
And sorry, Greg, I know the blue looked all right. I don't know. I like the red and white. Just like it. Yeah. Let's see here. Mowequa Central A&M is a team that I'm really worried about as far as 1A North is concerned. And the reason why is because, like I stated before, the play of Connor Heaton and Jacob Parody is just amazing to watch. The Raiders definitely have something going on there with their offense. They play much better than they did last year. Obviously, that's the growth and maturation of being juniors to seniors. But overall, I mean, and then you throw in the play of Connor Hutchins. And you take a look, I mean, Moweaqua Central A&M reminds me a lot of Akron, where Heaton will take the ball and he'll run it too. I mean,
Right.
he's our leading rusher. And it's kind of the same as what Luke Sluter was for Tuscola 2 years ago when Tuscola played Lena Winslow, where, everything went through the quarterback.
And if you weren't seeing anything on your first or second read, it was tuck and run.
Right. And that's exactly what you have here with Connor Heaton. The problem is that you have two phenomenal wide receivers there that he can get the ball to as well. And then, they will give their ball to their running back, even though he's only got like 400 yards rushing.
Right.
But that's similar to who was that kid from Tuscola 2 years ago that only had like 700 yards rushing entering the playoffs. And all of a sudden, he was the guy. Yeah. And that's what Moweaqua Central A&M is. I mean, they're basically a carbon copy offense of what Tuscola and St. Teresa both do.
Right.
And they play very fast and physical on defense as well. So they remind me a lot of 2017 Tuscola.
Which was a very close game with Lena Winslow.
Right.
So
the only problem I see with Central A&M and compared to Lena Winslow is they don't have the line size that Tuscola had in 2017.
Not many schools match up to Lena Winslow's line, though, to begin with. So.
And honestly, though, you take out Ian Kill from last year. I thought that Lena Winslow's line size last year and their level of play was better than this year.
Which makes sense.
The only difference is that now you have a more dynamic backfield because you have Mari Roby in the backfield for Lena Winslow to go with Ormiston because a lot of people are keying on Ormiston. And Mari's fast. I mean, Valentine got hurt, so Valentine's out right now. And so with Valentine out, you have Mari back there, and then they put Bruce back in there.
Okay.
Before that, they had Bruce at tight end again, where he is very formidable at tight end, getting out on those lead blocks. So, but Central A&M, they're definitely that's going to be a lot of fun to watch them play, and I'm really anxious to see them and Athens. More excited than anxious. But that semifinal matchup between them and Athens, if it comes to fruition like we think it should, that's going to be a lot of fun.
I think
much like Tuscola and Athens was back in 2017.
I think the best part about all this is that at some point someone is going to lose that we didn't really see coming. I think that's part of the fun in all this.
It is. I mean,
and it's going to happen. It's just we don't know where yet.
Right.
But it's going to happen.
Yep. Somebody's going to pull off an upset that you're not expecting, and it's going to turn everything that we think could happen upside down. But
I mean, I know that we have picked Lena Winslow, but their first round game. You and I have talked about this before that you don't like to look ahead too much, and obviously a matchup with Hope in the second round could be there, but there could be an argument made that Lena Winslow's toughest road to the state championship is their first round game with Aurora Christian.
That's definitely one that they got to get out from under them for sure. Yeah, forced into Marquette. I know you like your Crusaders, Greg, but Forston definitely put a licking on Marquette here a couple years ago, and
Man can dream, right?
Yeah, you definitely can. Do I think
that could be a decent?
It could be a good game. Obviously, like we stated, Marquette has dropped their last two games. Forston just snapped a 2-game streak, but 2-game losing skid, and they
squeaked one out against EPC last night. So,
well, and I also mentioned that, Marquette lost to Rockford Christian, but, that's the second time those teams have played. So, you're also looking at more adjustments there as well. So, having a chance to see an opponent twice is always better than once.
but it makes you wonder, though, too. I mean, does Coach Yups, does he have that? Are they hurt right now?
Or did they overlook them? I mean,
That
those
can
are
happen
those-
too, because I know that Marquette, when they played Rockford Christian the first time around, Marquette crushed Rockford
Right
Christian.
there. Marquette is limping into the playoffs. Don't seem to be the same team they were earlier in the year. Their two losses were both rematches.
And
That's
the
very
Hiawatha loss doesn't surprise me. I mean, you take a look the first time those two teams played, and Marquette won that 41-35. And I mean, Hiawatha, we've seen them each of the last 2 years, but they were relatively young the 2 years that we've seen them play.
Right.
And Coach Kenaway at Hiawatha has done a great job of trying to get something going there. And they have a good senior leadership there that has improved their level of play as well. And that's where I like what Hiawatha is going on. Unfortunately, I do not see either Marquette or Hiawatha coming out of the NEAC conference as state title contenders.
Right.
And I just don't think it's going to happen. Can Marquette get by Forston? I think it's possible. I just think Forston's going to have too much coming. Forston's get healthy, and right now is the best time for them to be able to get healthy heading into the first round playoffs.
Right.
So, you guys got any other questions? Obviously, we've talked a lot of teams. If there's a team we left out and you want to hear something on, one team that we have not touched a whole lot of base on is St. Teresa, and I keep forgetting about their quarterback, Jack Hogan. And he's been impressive. Obviously, he was a starter as a freshman in the 2016 state championship game. He's the one who A.J. Christensen from Forston did the old whoops and blew out his knee. Not literally, but I still have that on camera, by the way. No, definitely like what they have going on there. And then you add in the play of Delvin Cook at running back as well. And St. Teresa is definitely a team to watch down there. They do a lot of good things. Their only loss coming to Central A&M. And I think they, like we stated before, that matchup with potentially with Merle Forsyth is going to be a lot of fun. And I feel that St. Teresa will give Merle Forsyth everything they have, much like they did last year when Merle pulled out a 16-14 semifinal win.
That was.
And the only downfall is that it's not going to be a semifinal matchup. It's going to happen in the quarterfinals.
Right. It seems to be a recurring theme tonight. There's going to be a lot of good quarterfinal matchups.
Oh yeah, but that's where you expect the good
that's
games
where
to be.
you expect them
When
to
you're
start
looking
really
at the
picking up.
Yeah, and when you're looking at the brackets, that's where you really want the brackets to play out to, so you're getting those big games early on or later on in the bracket, rather
Not
than
losing a
early.
good team early on compared to a lesser team later. So.
Right, correct. So, well, any other questions?
Anything else? Let's even open up any class you got, any team.
We'll wait here. Obviously, a lot of good things to come. The playoffs are always an exciting time. You get the best 5 weeks of the season are here right now.
Yeah.
And you just, when you got that going on, you can't beat it.
And if the weather is anything like it's been the last 2 weeks, it might be a cold playoff run.
I think it's going to be cold. I had to actually pull out the hand warmers last night.
Last night was the coolest I've been since about a quarterfinal game last year.
People make fun of me all the time because I go to games, especially when it gets cold, and I'm always wearing my snow pants, but that's just so I can stay warm.
3 o'clock comes quick out here in Colorado. I think. Yes, it does.
Thanks, Travis. Appreciate it. And thanks for tuning in, even though you're out in Colorado. Definitely appreciate it. I'm glad we were able to touch base on the WIBC for you as well. If you have any questions, don't feel free to touch out. Obviously, you know how to get a hold of us, so we'd be happy to entertain you some more.
Out of the 10 people that are left still watching, any more questions?
Well, 2019 playoffs are here. Obviously, we're going to start getting some games rolling in. We will go into our bracket challenge for those that follow our webpage, which is NUICfootball.com. We have our Facebook media sites on as NUIC Football Fanatics on Facebook. We have a page and a group. The group is our primary focal point, as that's where a lot of our forum activities take place. You can also follow us on Twitter at NUIC Football as well. Thank you all for joining us. We will get brackets out soon to participate in our bracket challenge. We look to have a lot of participants as we did the last couple of years. And moving forward, we will be following this broadcast up with our round 1 breakdown, and we'll get that video out by Monday or Tuesday this week as well. It's been a lot of fun. Look forward to another great playoff run. As always, root for the NUIC. Have a good night, everybody. Enjoy.